I would like to announce.
Your microphone, please. Thank you.
I would like to announce for the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953B concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Board member Carolyn Swanson is participating in this meeting by speakerphone from her vehicle, a white Tesla, in the school district office parking lot, 435 Hillcrest Avenue, Pacific Grove, California 93950. In accordance with the Brown Act, this location has been identified on the agenda for this meeting, and I would now like to ask board member Carolyn Swanson to respond to the following questions. Are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this evening?
Yes.
Has the agenda been posted at your location?
Yes.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of this teleconference meeting from your location?
Yes.
Members of the board, are you able to hear board member Carolyn Swanson?
Yes.
Thank you. Because we are having a meeting with teleconferencing, all actions this evening will be by a roll call vote. We'll now take roll call.
Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Trustee Rivera. Here. Trustee Paff.
Here.
Trustee Brian Swanson is absent this evening. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Here.
Okay, it's now time for adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes?
There are no changes to the agenda this evening from my end, Madam President, unless the board has something they'd like to add.
Carolyn?
I do not have anything to add.
Thank you. Okay. Those were the comments. Are there any public comments? May I have a motion, please?
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion was made by John Paff, seconded by Dr. Rivera. Roll call vote.
Trustee Dawson.
Yes.
Trustee Rivera. Aye. Trustee Paff.
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll now move into closed session. And in closed session tonight, the matters that we will be considering are negotiation, which is some collective bargaining, session planning and preparation for PGTA and CSEA. There will also be public employee discipline, dismissal, release, complaint. And also we will be covering superintendent mid-year evaluation check-in. Is there any public comment on closed session topics this evening? Seeing none, we adjourn to closed session. Okay, we will now reconvene in open session. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And we see some green out here. Thanksgiving, excuse me. I'm a little tired. Okay, sorry. I see green, not turkeys. I see, maybe it was that got me screwed up. I'd like now please to report action taken in closed session. We worked on negotiations with collective bargaining for both PGTA and CSEA. Information received, direction given, and received no action at this time. We also dealt with a public employee discipline, dismissal, release complaint for government code 54957. And the board voted unanimously for nothing in closed session to non-reelect one certificated employee. Employee number is 152397. Also, the superintendent mid-year evaluation check-in, we were not able to complete that due to time with all the other items we were dealing with today. So we will go back into closed session after this evening's meeting because we did not want to have anybody in here waiting too long. So thank you so much. And now we will move to Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. Everybody rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will begin tonight with written communications. And we did have a letter regarding COVID and COVID protocols. So that was responded to. And of course, we'll have a COVID update tonight during the meeting. We also heard from more very cold children due to our heater and them rubbing their little hands together because they couldn't hold their pencils. So we also got some very good news that had been fixed and students were returning and defrosting, so to speak, at the high school only. Okay. Okay, we can't speak, everybody's cold, but that's the only place we were having that. Were there any other letters that people did receive? Dr. Rivera.
I received communication with concerns about masking and just where the district is going with that. And I also received communication regarding concerns around reconfiguration.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Yeah, I got one about Carmel Bach Festival Young Artist Showcase that's coming.
We were having a little trouble with her in the other
Cool
room.
information. I'll forward that on to Ralph so he can see it however he's.
Could you repeat that one more time? We lost you for much of that.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Sure. I got it. Great. I got an email about Carmel Bach Festival Young Artist Showcase. So I'll forward that along to Ralph and decide if he wants to distribute.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Path? Okay. Thank you very much. Board member comments, please. I'll start by saying Monday night, we had a meeting here that the county school board came and sat all along here. There was I think there were 7 trustees and the county soup and assistant soup. And it was all about finalizing our moving to by trustee area voting. And they listened and there was a brief presentation about the history of that since it started in April of last year. And we went through the different things we had done as far as meetings and town halls and publications and conversations. We had some comments from the public, and they went ahead and voted and approved the teal map. And that's what we'll use as we move forward. Okay. Others?
It was, yeah, I was also there. It was nice to see and finally meet the county board. So I just want to say, thank you to the county board for that. The military link is up and I'm very excited about that for our military families. We know we have NPS and DLI here, which feed a lot of children into our area. So it's good to let them know how much we are grateful to have them and how safe their children are with us. One thing I wanted to mention, and this is having to do with our local community college, is a new law is being passed, AB 1705, that restricts, starting this coming fall, MPC will no longer be able to offer pre-statistics, beginning algebra, or intermediate algebra. So this might be good for our high schoolers to know that, oh, I'll take that at MPC. It's not going to be offered. And now the Academic Senate is very upset about this at MPC and trying to see what could be done in order to change this, because students should be allowed to take preparatory courses if they feel that they need that. But I think that our high school students should be aware of that in case that was a plan of theirs. And that is all. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I see a lot of green.
Thanks for making sure we're on the right holiday. I
Yes.
appreciate it. Could you please share what's going on at the high school? Some good news.
So right now, we are the after school play production is performing Clue. It's a student directed play. It's directed by Caden Bloomer and Emmett Withrow. Last week we just had our student voices, our talent show, and it went really well. We have a lot of amazing acts. In the next coming weeks, we have our Winter Sports Week that leads into a rally. We have our Sadie Hawkins dance. We have our powder puff and buff. And I think that's it.
What does buff mean?
Powder buff is when the boys play volleyball, and then powder puff is when the girls play football. And so then we
Okay.
have our coaches, like for girls from the volleyball team will coach the boys. And we are gonna have a big old like field day at the end of the week on that minimum day, Friday, right before spring break. It's gonna be a field day where we'll have the teams will like play each other, and we'll have like tug of war and lots of fun activities for people to do.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Trustee Paff?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I watched a little of the track meet yesterday. That's, Tuesday. That was fun and interesting. And frankly, I absolutely love to see our students on the field and a large group of people out there. And to me, that is, it was a nice afternoon until it got cold, but it was really, really great to see. Also, I had, and to the other trustees, I owe a little apology. I got a request in mid-February from Mayor Peak asking to just come in and talk about the districting process to the city, and really only about the process, not really about maps and results, and but kind of some of what they should expect as they go forward, if they go forward into this process. So I did that last night. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
Hey, Christy, I redid my hotspot, so I'm hoping that my connection is better. So please let me know if it's not. Okay, I have a shout out to Shane Steinbeck, the vice principal at the high school. I drove by the 5-way stop the other day, and he was out there with his reflective vest on doing a stellar job keeping our kids safe across the crosswalk. And I just thought that was really cool to see that. So also, on a less fun note, I attended Legislative Action Week through CSBA. They call it Ledge Action, if you want to sound cool. And we met with Assemblymember Stone about some topics that CSBA had set forth. Some of the examples of items were pensions and the increasing burden on districts, the percentage that we are required to contribute, home to school transportation, LCFF funding, ADA funding. So that was really great. I got to meet 7 other trustees who were in Northern California in Assemblymember Stone's area, and they were all really passionate and kind of nerdy about the numbers and what we can do. So that was kind of nice to feel like I was around like-minded folks. And then that's all I've got. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Why does everybody know the real day but me? The sound is perfect now, so thank you so much. I also wanted to say something that we had received a communication regarding Todd Buller, his retirement, and a lot of nice things from a former student. And that's student who's now an adult has just asked us to keep something in mind to honor him for all he's done for the community, family, students who have he's kind of fostered and taken care of, and this young man was very interested in us as a group looking at that. And I've talked to Dr. Porras, and that will stay on our radar. And finally, yesterday I went to an open house at Casa de Noche Buena, which is for students and families sometimes who are homeless and need a place to stay. They work with Gathering for Women, but this is a place where you can live in for a while and find your way. And I represent us in Community Human Services, and just wanted to let you know that was one of the items we did. All right, thank you so much. And next we will go to superintendent comments, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And may I say, I'm thankful for St. Patrick's Day. So appreciate your
Thank you.
You're acknowledged there. A couple of just quick items, and as I want to defer to the agenda. But first off, I do want to make note, we have advertised this out. We will continue to push the message out through all media, newspapers, news, as well as district avenues for a fentanyl town hall, fentanyl awareness town hall for Monday, March the 28th from 6:30 to 7:30. The special guests who will be leading this conversation will be Dr. Casey Grover from CHOMP and Reb Close. And we are in line in this presentation with other schools in our area. Monterey Peninsula recently also did a town hall of this nature, very successful. And the intent is to try to do our best to have the public become aware as possible of the impact of fentanyl on our youth and our community. It's an incredibly dangerous drug. On the street version, it's even worse. It's not a very controllable substance and is causing a lot of havoc in and around our community. And we're hopeful that by presenting this and getting the message out to the extent that we can, we'll do our very best to help save lives and prevent issues in the near future. The information that's going to be presented is pretty direct and it's pretty staggering. So I encourage everyone to please attend as possible. It will be virtual and in person in this room, although we're limited by the number of participants we can have in this room. The panel will be here, but we will be broadcasting it out. Anywhere in the community, anyone in the community may join. And so I think the only piece to that will be to make sure that our Zoom account will account for as many people as want to get on there. So want to thank Safety Director Barbara Martinez for her efforts in getting this organized and put together. And so a lot of good work on her part as well as at the high school. So want to thank folks for that. And the second piece I wanted to make mention of is in a broad way, as we'll continue to get a little bit more specific information for everyone. We've had a successful start to the cultural proficiency work that we have begun on our 3-year journey. And want to thank all of the participants who worked with that and participated in this first day. We have another couple coming before the June time. And I think the facilitation was excellent. We picked the right people in regards, I think, to praxis and the folks that are helping with that. So I'll give more information as we get closer, but I just want to knock out that it was really a great day and really a very successful start. So we'll keep at it. And I'll defer to the rest of the agenda at this point.
Okay. Please, I could
Just
tell
following
you.
up on Dr. Porris's comment there, I'd like to thank the city council member who spoke up and mentioned the fentanyl presentation as well at last night's meeting. So appreciate that. City council also pushed that out.
Yes, yeah, we pushed it out to as many people as we can get there. So it's good. Yes.
Okay, we'll now move on to PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. And is the microphone on with the green? There you go.
Sally Richmond, Pacific Grove High School. I am happy to announce that the robotics team went through their first successful regional at Port Hueneme last weekend. We placed in the top 10, so we're super excited about that. And we have the Monterey Bay Regional, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And we will be broadcasting our matches Friday in the library, followed by more matches on Saturday. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, not open to the public for viewing, but I'm sure our students will be happy to give you an update once we're all done. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
You're going to start that timer over for me. Right? I need all 3 of my minutes and not starting till after I introduce myself, please.
Okay.
Carrie Serpa, Forest Grove, also a parent. Reconfiguration has been discussed for years as an answer to the inequities in our elementary schools. If you're a Forest Grove family, you keep score of the myriad of enrichment opportunities offered at Robert Down, while at Forest Grove, you have mostly academic intervention. Whether site-funded or volunteer-driven, equity means getting creative to offer the same opportunities at Forest Grove, all the more important because we have targeted Title I population. In order for this to happen, budget transparency, including enrichment and intervention, is a must. Remember, fair is not always equal. I encourage you to also think about social emotional health. School culture and connection are important. Our children's friendships are fragile after only a year back on campus. Please don't put them through the stress of being pulled away from their neighborhood schools, buddy classes, and mentor teachers. It is also worth noting that middle school offers our 6th graders a chance to start a new chapter and reinvent themselves. If we reconfigure, students will literally be with the same cohort for 13 years and never get a chance for a fresh start. Staff at both sites are hanging by a thread right now. We continue to look at bridging huge academic gaps, supporting unfathomable mental health challenges, on top of adopting new curriculum. Everything is a lot as it is. We simply cannot adequately prioritize plans for reconfiguration at this time. Because our district office admin does not currently have the manpower or the bandwidth to carry out this huge undertaking. Our superhero maintenance staff of 2 is doing amazing work despite their obviously overwhelming job trying to make our school's aging infrastructure function, but they cannot physically move 20+ classrooms and update sites accordingly. Reconfiguration and the myriad of seniority issues it would bring would add weight to an already overburdened HR. Right now, we have openings in payroll at school sites. Our head of facilities resigned last month, and in September, we have no business manager. When I was with PGUSD, I experienced the reconfiguration of 4 turnaround schools, and I can say that even with an enthusiastic community commitment and detailed plans for staffing, facilities, and school culture, the plan was still only partially successful, with one PGUSD school in particular forever negatively impacted by the process. Transportation, busing, is already an issue, and traffic patterns and start times will be a nightmare for this entire community. Reconfiguration is a huge undertaking for a high-functioning district, and many staff lack confidence in our district office being able to pull off something of this magnitude. Although I had been in favor of reconfiguration primarily as a solution to the equity issue, I believe funding adjustments can provide an equitable education in our current TK5 model without putting all PGUSD stakeholders through this unnecessary disruption. We can have equity without reconfiguration. Just reconfigure the budget. Thank you. 2 seconds to spare.
You made it. Thank you very much. You're right. It has been discussed for a very long time. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Sean Keller, proud principal at Robert Down Elementary School. Top of the evening to you. And happy St. Patrick's Day. Just want to let the board and our community know that we're doing a Charleston Wrap fundraiser over at Robert Down, starting this week and all the way through April 28th. And don't forget about the PG Pride Take and Make Pasta Dinner fundraiser on March 19th. They are not doing the Taste of PG this year. So this is their #1 fundraiser for the year. So don't forget that. Robert Down will have our March site council meeting this Monday. And it can be accessed through a link that'll be in the principal's update. And we will be having the Sea Otter Classic Assembly on March 29th. For the month of April, Robert Down is doing a PTA Dine Out fundraiser and Dine In fundraiser at Sir Restaurant in Carmel. And please, we're also doing, and put on your calendar for April 23rd, this is Saturday, we're doing a school spring cleanup. So if you're interested in helping clean up around the campus, please sign up with our PTA. And lastly, on May 7th, we are going to celebrate the 100th year of the Robert Down building. So please come on down in the morning. It will occur at the end of the Good Old Days Parade, which ends right there on Fountain. And we'll be celebrating and taking some pictures, hopefully with some former students and former staff and our current students and staff. So come on down and celebrate the great building that we built 100 years ago. Thank you so much.
Could you say that date one more time,
That's
please?
May 7th. That's
May
Good Old Days
7th.
has moved from April to May.
Okay.
May 7th and 8th is Good Old Days. So on May 7th, we will be celebrating the centennial of our building. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have 3 virtual, please. Someone from Robert Down, please.
Hello, my name's Christina Renteria, kindergarten at Robert Down. I first would like to say thank you to Carrie Serpa for speaking out so eloquently regarding reconfiguration, and I agree with your comments. I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Sean Keller for doing a fantastic job at last night's kindergarten orientation meeting, as well as I have constantly noticed throughout this whole school year of him doing an amazing job being out on the playground constantly, using the toolbox tools and helping all of our children K through 5 manage and deal with issues that come out both at recesses and at lunch recesses as well. So thank you, Mr. Keller, for your constant support in that. And I also like to take a moment to thank our amazing classified staff, because I feel like that they have been our backbone, our true help, everything in regards to our support this crazy year, as well as the last 2 years. So thank you for the amazing classified aides that I really appreciate having you by my side as I teach. That's all I have to say. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you for sharing. Next, Barbara Martinez, please.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Barbara Martinez, Director of Safety for the district, Principal of Pacific Grove Adult School. Thank you, Dr. Porras, for mentoring the Safety Night Town Hall that we are going to have on March 28th from 6:30 to 7:30. I did want to just dovetail on his comments about also being informed of the dangers that accompany drug use. We are going to have a training on the use of fentanyl, not fentanyl, the use of fentanyl, on the use of Narcan, which combats overdose. And Dr. Grover and the panel are going to encourage everybody to understand that you can get Narcan over the counter through your pharmacy. You do not need a prescription for it. You simply need to request it. And we're going to take an interest list for our community. We want to get Narcan in the hands of every community member, every family member, so that we don't have any devastating incidents in the future. I wanted to mention also to comment on Dr. Rivera's comment in the beginning about classes not being able to be had at MPC for the introductory classes. We welcome any student wanting an introductory class with pre-algebra or algebra to come to any local adult school, whether it's Pacific Grove Adult School or Monterey Adult School. Will offer all of the intervention classes that anyone needs to get prepared to attend community college. So no worries, everybody will be served, and all classes for those classes will be free of charge. I also wanted to dovetail on what Trustee Carolyn said about Legislative Action Day. For those of us in administration or members of AXA, we also have Ledge Days. And for those of us in adult ed, we have the California Council for Adult Education, all rallying and fighting for advocating on behalf of all of our students in K-12 and adult school throughout the month of April. So we have our appointments already set with all of our local legislators. They know who we are. We have candid and frequent conversations with them as well. And then finally, I just want to let you know that our new spring session at the adult school starts Monday. More and more students are coming back in person. So if you haven't already, come and check out all of our classes and register.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Sean Roach, please.
Good evening, trustees. Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School, with just a quick update that Monday last, PGMS has completed the first of 3 staff-wide trainings from the Monterey County Office of Education with the guest speaker, Mirko Chardon, covering UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. This equity-based instruction is meant to optimize learning and teaching for all students based on the tenet that all students can access and participate in challenging learning. This was done in the spirit of equity. Our staff is jazzed on this. We look forward to sessions 2 and 3. We look forward to reporting back to you. Thank you. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Thank you very much. I see you're in some green. Any others, please? Okay, now we'll move on to individuals desiring to address the board. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to board action on each item. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to Board Policy 9323. Speakers will be called sequentially until there is no more speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated for the agenda item has elapsed, whichever comes first. This meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on future agenda. Are there any members wishing to address us now?
Beth Shamas. Since our last board meeting, just a couple weeks ago, I'd like to acknowledge that a student at the community high school lost his life. And I only learned about that from my nephew who knew someone, and then I read about it in Pinecone. And I'd like to use some of my time here to ask for a moment of silence for this person. I did not know him, but I think he deserves a moment of our silence as well as his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any hands?
Yes, Robin.
Robin Pelt, please.
Thank you. First, I just want to share my condolences about the person who lost his life. That's really horrible, and I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that reconfiguration was being discussed again until today. So I just had a quick comment I wanted to share on that. I'm a parent of two kids. They're both at Forest Grove. My daughter's very academic, and so I think she would benefit from more enrichment activities. But I just don't think at this time that reconfiguration is the answer. The SERPA pretty much said it all, but from a parent's perspective, this has been a really hard year for teachers, parents, and kids. And I just think what we all need right now is a good dose of stability. I know it's meant a lot for my son who's in kindergarten to have his sister there to help him with the transition at this really tumultuous year. I know my daughter loves her little buddy class. She strongly identifies as a Forest Grove Falcon. So it's just at this time, I think we need to let the kids keep these connections that they've made. And if there's an equity imbalance between the two elementaries, let's adjust funding rather than move kids around. So that's all I had to say about that. And then there's a separate time in the agenda to speak about the COVID safety plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There will be during the COVID update.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other members? Okay, not at this time. So we'll move forward.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a quick question to Ralph regarding the information night on fentanyl?
Of course.
Ralph, are we planning anything for that that event to take place as well, specifically for the high school students, both high schools?
Well, right now it's for the entire community. So we don't have a separate high school student night planned. It takes a lot of prep ahead of time to just get this put together. So we can ask them if they can do something specifically for students. Our first intent was to try to get out to parents and the community members first for their awareness. I'll talk with Principal Garcia though. We can take a look.
That would certainly be a wonderful item in the health class because they always talk about those issues. And since we were so directly impacted recently, I think it would really be great to look at that. Okay, no hands. All right, we're going to move on now to the consent agenda. And the items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There's no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the Board of Trustees shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Okay, are there any questions or concerns for tonight's consent? Dr. Rivera? No. Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
No, because I got my question answered from Song, and I'm just going to say it out loud for public record. It was a question about consent F, making sure that the DJ had liability insurance, and she is working on that, and possibly that's already done. So that was my only concern. I don't have anything to pull.
Okay. Trustee Path, as am I. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Dr. Frank Rivera and seconded by Carolyn Swanson. May I have a vote, please? Oh, public comment. Sorry, almost skipped that. Right, there's public waiting for me. Thank you, Mr. Rockman.
Good evening, trustees, Buck Rogaman, principal at Forest Grove. I just wanted to point out a couple of very important items under the classified assignment order. The first is Assistant Superintendent Chin Bendib. I've gotten a great chance to work very closely with Song through the negotiations process these past couple of years. And also, you know, in the conversations that we've had building the budget at Forest Grove. And Song, I just want to thank you for being so professional, being so skilled at the work that you do, and also having a good sense of humor as we went about that work. And I just want to say that I'm very appreciative that our paths crossed, you know, and that you came and served our students, our families, and our district for the past 4 years. So thank you. The other person that I'd like to point out is Denise Engels. I had the pleasure of working with her when I was at the middle school for 3 years as the assistant principal, and she was also the office manager the first year that I was the principal at the middle school. And anyone that's ever served as a site admin understands the absolute critical importance of having an office manager that you can lean on, especially in the first principalship that you've ever had. There were so many times where I would give an answer to someone and then later on circle back and say to Mrs. Engels, I hope I'm right. And she said, yes, Buck, you're right. And I'm not sure that I always was, but she made me feel as though I was right. And I know that she came and served the district office after working at the middle school. And for 24 years, she served as an incredible resource of information, of historical knowledge, and just a very, very steady hand to help keep the business of schools running in the district. So as a friend, as a colleague, just want Mrs. Engels to know that we are all going to miss her dearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
President Dawson, can I have a few words about Mrs. Engels too?
I would love it.
Thank you. Yes, Denise, I don't know what to say. 4 years, you know, this August, a little bit more than 4 years. And I just have to say from day one, I couldn't have done what I've done without her. Mr. Rogerman talked about resource information. I think there's not one piece of information or one person she doesn't know. She's a go-to person, of course, from me, but also from the site support staff as well. And she's very graceful. You know, if something that she always will go out her way to help people. And also one thing that I find is very refreshing is coming here, how she keeps up books for retirees. This is one area that I will have to always invest a lot of time in my previous districts. And it's really a sigh of relief when I find that it's she keeps it up in such good shape. So I really wish her the best and we'll miss her.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple words. Song doesn't realize it, but her resignations have not been accepted, so it doesn't really matter at this point, actually. No, we'll have an opportunity to share more for sure, but obviously, just as we were approving this item tonight, you all, and I know you all well know the skill level that Song brings to the district office, and on a personal level and professional level, I regard her as a very good friend and a colleague and a good partner in helping to do the best we can service the staff and students. And the other piece that I'll just add, and I know that I know she won't mind, as we have continued to talk about equity, Song was a champion of the discussions about equity and the impact that it has on students and staff right from the get-go, right in our first administrative retreat when she met the team. And she has not been shy about speaking out about the need that we have in our community and our world around us to make sure that we are addressing the needs of our students in an equitable fashion. And that leadership shines through in every decision that she makes. And so as we talk about arranging the budget towards equity goals, it's embedded in the discussions she has. Obviously, there are more overt ways that that can happen, but it's pretty remarkable. So Song, thank you for all the work that you've done. You leave a legacy for us, and it's appreciated. And Denise, the same way. If there was anyone that knew where all the skeletons were in which closets, and if this was the old district office, then yeah, there's definitely some strange stuff happening in that building in terms of closets. But it was she has done a remarkable job for the district, and she's just a great team player. And we'll certainly miss her leadership in regards to the work that she's done. She's also held leadership in regards to making decisions for the entire confidential team, the classified confidential team in the district office. She's presented her leadership in many ways over the years, very subtle, and she doesn't like to toot her own horn. She doesn't look for the acknowledgement, but she certainly deserves it. And so she will be missed for sure.
We've still got time though, right? Okay, it's a long drawn out departure.
We're gonna make these days last.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Tonight is second interim is more important.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's where I'm going, John. Thank you so much, though. We need to move, please, a motion and roll call vote.
We have a motion and a second. So a roll call vote is ready.
Okay, roll call vote.
Sure. Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Rivera?
Aye.
Trustee Paff?
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move on to action discussion. And the first on our agenda, which it has been for a long time, please, the district update to response to COVID-19.
Thank you, Madam President. Nurse Powley will be jumping on here shortly. It seems that there's a password glitch on Zoom, so people are needing the password to jump on. So if you're needing that password, it's 344733. But if you're needing the password, you probably didn't hear that because you couldn't get on. So never mind. So we have a couple of bits of information for you since the last time. The first is that we'll be posting, we just posted the new numbers onto the dashboard. And again, just in terms of seeing cases declining, things are looking very good, knock on wood, in regards to COVID in our schools. We're continuing to do our testing, the pool testing, and we continue to offer testing here at the district office every Monday, and we continue to offer individual tests as necessary at the school sites. One of the conversations that has come up, and I think it would be important for the board to at least either discuss this or give some direction or take action. As we have gone to strongly recommended in regards to masking indoors, the question has come up, what happens with students that are currently in the modified quarantine period? Or what happens to students who are close contact? It's pretty straightforward for the students who have tested positive because they have to test negative before return. However, it becomes a little more problematic, I guess is the word you would say, for students that are remaining on campus because the new regulations no longer take into regard vaccinated or unvaccinated. It's clear that the county health department is slowly deviating away from the past modified quarantine rules and moving towards kind of a new status. But we're still trying to get some clarity from the Monterey County Health Department and what that exactly means and how that shakes loose. So in the meantime, the question has come up in regards to will the board look at mandating masks in classrooms where there was a close contact until the exposure period has ended? And I think the concern there is that to just increase that level of safety for a classroom that has clearly been compromised in regards to a student testing positive. There's nothing right now in the law in regards to that requirement, because as you know, they moved from mandated masks to strongly recommended. And so that conversation is currently happening. The other piece to that conversation, and I guess it has to be taken separately, really becomes the question of what happens with the new variant over the course of the next few weeks. It looks as if you read the news, there currently is an uptick in COVID cases in Europe off of the new variant that's a little different from Omicron. And we're kind of watching how those numbers are progressing. We're not seeing that effect here currently. The numbers in the county continue to be low in Pacific Grove as well, based on the CDC numbers. Again, we are well in the low community level. So we're not seeing the effect yet, but the question becomes what happens if we do start seeing cases increase? We don't know that whether or not the state or the local county are going to be able to recover quick enough with any kind of mandate if we wanted to move back to masking. There is allowance in the law as the way it is written for local jurisdictions to make regulations that are more restrictive if we so choose. The board has been pretty clear in regards to this once the mandate is changed, that we will continue to work within the guidelines that have been presented to us. This is a little bit of a sort of a wild card that has come up. And so I know that Dr. Pelk had mentioned that a couple of times, and I know that it's warrants that discussion. I know staff members have mentioned it well, and the administration has mentioned it. And so I think it would be important to talk a little bit about that. And so that said, I think we have Nurse Powley on. And if we do, I was going to ask her to speak to this just a little bit.
Thank you, Ralph. Yes. So with the guidance, I've been in touch with the Monterey County Health Department on a weekly basis, if not more often. And just to get clarity and interpretation of the new guidance that has come out in light of modified quarantine and what leeway we have in terms of developing more restrictive guidance and rules for close contact exposure, which makes sense in terms of the strong recommendation of masking indoors, which is still important. And so this is a discussion I'm having and continuing to have, and I'm going to get some more interpretations and clarity on some of the documents that they've released recently, the decision trees and the guidance in terms of modified quarantine and masking for close contact exposures. And that's the biggest question right now is how much can we require students to mask if they're a part of a close contact exposure classroom, given the safety of that and obviously the health and safety benefits. So I will be providing more updates as I receive those from the county health. So in the meantime, we're continuing to strongly recommend that students and staff mask indoors. And also we're being very vigilant to our illness policy. So if students are symptomatic, we are very proactive in having them sent home after assessing them, and then making sure that parents provide us with documentation of any underlying medical conditions mimicking a contagious illness, so that we know if students have allergies or asthma, something that might mimic a cold or a cough or congestion. We know that we know if they're safe to stay at school versus if they should be sent home. And then we're also recommending the testing. So the CDPH, their recommendation has not gone away in terms of testing if you're symptomatic. So all close contact exposure should be tested 3 to 5 days into the exposure period, and those that are symptomatic. So we're being very proactive with testing, basically on demand. We have plenty of on-site tests. We've just received also from MCOE a sizable shipment of home test kits aside from the January 3rd, and also the President's Day break distribution. We have additional. So essentially we have enough test kits to provide for whoever would like a test kit. So that's really, really good news. And we'll also have plenty of test kits to hand out prior to spring break. So I'm very, very pleased that with the pool testing, with the on-site testing on demand, with the district office testing, I feel like we're covering our bases in terms of really being proactive with testing and assessment. And then just continuing to remind people to stay home when you're ill, get tested, let us know what the status is before you return. Make sure if you're positive that you do anticipate this full 10-day quarantine, you can test at day 5 to be released from quarantine at day 6 if you're asymptomatic and negative. So that's what we're doing right now. And if I'm going to receive some information tomorrow from the Monterey County Health Department on some of their interpretation of the guidelines and some of the documents I've received to make sure that we we understand exactly what their expectations are in terms of modified quarantine and any further anticipated guidance changes or clarifications. So any questions?
I had a question. I know the news had talked about the new variant and said within 2 to 3 weeks. Is that, are you hearing that as well?
So I have not, but I will look more into that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So I think planning ahead for what to expect and having some things in place is really a good idea. So.
And my second question was, as far as masking after exposure, do you see any difference with younger versus older students, or this would be across the board, correct?
Across the board, yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, and I just wanted to ask if you guys know that your camera is off for the boardroom. Just wanted
Yes,
to know that.
He's
You know.
working very hard. He's jumping around trying to figure it out. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And then my actual questions related to the topic. So pooled testing is, I'm a huge fan of pooled testing. As you all know, I was bringing it up for a long time. Is there anything that we can do to make sure that we have just maximized that as an option? That's my first question. And my second question is more of a statement. I would be in favor right now of saying that students and staff in modified quarantine should be wearing masks. I would be in favor of that, which is a slight modification of what we have currently, but I think it would keep a lot of people safe. And so I'm in favor of that if we're going to give direction on that tonight.
Thank you, Carolyn. In terms of the pool testing, that's a great point, and I'm so happy that we have it on as well. So we just found out this week that Robert Down in the middle school, whose results we have are all negative. So that's just a huge relief to have that data. We have Forest Grove and the high school results coming in tomorrow. So I'm working with a couple of parents to create flyers. Well, the parents have brought this to me, which is it's a wonderful idea to try to, as sort of an outreach to help parents, to educate parents that have not yet signed up their students for pool testing, to answer questions and provide more information so that they can then sign their students up. Because I think that just with the climate that we're in and now with the masking adjustment, I think the pool testing is really critical. So I'll continue to.
I'm talking about if somebody tests positive in the class.
Well, Christina Renteria, you're unmuted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Where it's from. All right, Trustee Carolyn Swanson, any more comments?
Katrina, thank you for that update. And if you need another parent volunteer, because I am also a parent in the district, I'm happy to help in any way I can to further the pool testing advocacy out there in the public.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Dr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you for the update, Nurse Para of Howley. We, of course, you know how much we appreciate all the work that you do. I would just like to also echo that I would be in favor of masking with modified quarantine. And the logic behind my standpoint is that right now we are at a strong recommendation for masks. So if a child is exposed, then it just seems like the logical next step to have all those in close contact to wear masks until the quarantine is over. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Paff.
Thanks. Robin Pelk, if you're still on, thank you for the letters and information concerning that. I really want to just say I appreciate your inputs into this. Nurse Pally, well, can you just walk me through in 30 seconds, modified quarantine? Tell me what that means so I make sure I'm on the same page here.
So it's just close contact exposures can continue to attend school if they're masked during the exposure period. They would refrain from any extracurricular activities during the modified quarantine. So it's basically keeping children in school with masking as the guidance was originally written, but keeping them from not participating in extracurricular activities through the exposure period. And then also receiving testing at least once. The guidance is really twice during the 10-day exposure period, but sometimes when we find out about a case and report it, it's day 5 into the modified quarantine or the exposure period. And so if a student tests on day 6 of the exposure period in a modified quarantine, then they would be discontinued from the modified quarantine on day 8. So we require at least one test during that period as per the guidance. And the modified quarantine also applies to unvaccinated students only. So students that are fully vaccinated would not participate in modified quarantine. It's mainly for unvaccinated students.
So what's being suggested, I just want to make sure I'm clear here, is that if you were in modified quarantine, this means okay, I have to rewind even further. Modified quarantine is applicable right now under current rules only if you are unvaccinated. Is that what I just heard?
That's as it's originally written. And so my conversations with the county, they have told me that they're phasing out the modified quarantine because masking has been adjusted to optional regardless of vaccination status. So that would make it a little tricky if there's a close contact exposure and if one individual wasn't wearing a mask and one was, then the individual not wearing a mask would technically have to quarantine at home and wouldn't participate in modified quarantine. So it's really, modified quarantine is written for students that are fully masked in the classroom. So I know it's really kind of tricky and a little bit muddled. And so as I get more guidance, I'll share, or more clarification, I'll share that with you.
Well, so I need to continue that then. Right now, modified quarantine requires a mask. And what we're really asking and being asked is to have masks. If someone has tested positive, have masks in that classroom for 5 days for everyone. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think that's the proposal, if I understand that.
That's the proposal. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. The other thing that, you talked about it as parents. One of the things that came up was to ensure that we are continuing to push information out, which you said you are, and the round robin of vaccination clinics and come back to PG on a regular basis. Is there a possibility of that as we get information out?
Yes, so I've been in I haven't touched base with the fire department, the Monterey City Fire Department, but I know that they're more than willing to assist in another vaccine clinic if we would like to do that on site. So that's certainly something that I can reach out and coordinate with them.
Okay, thank you. Buck, may I ask you, what's the downside? And as to you or at the elementary level in particular, I think it's a little more difficult at the high school and middle school. But what's the downside? Because the students are transferring, right? If you modify and say, if you're in a class with and someone's been there, but they're wearing a mask, it just gets very hard for me. Is there a downside at the elementary for saying, okay, for a classroom, we have masks? I mean, that's easy. We have 100,000 masks somewhere around still. What do you see as a downside if we try and move that forward?
I think the biggest downside is that some of the students and some of the families have already gotten used to not having to wear the mask at school and are having a very positive experience with that. And so then to make us add one small requirement, I think might feel like an infringement on, a new standard that they can apply that they won't be able to apply for a couple of days. Personally, I am in favor of us, masking during the modified quarantine period, because as Nurse Powley said, if we have a negative test on day 3, 4, or 5, then the person would no longer need to mask. So we're not looking at having to mask for very long as an entire class. As soon as we have that negative test show up in, 3, 4, or 5. This is really just, a safety measure for us to limit as much as possible any possible community spread once we have a known case at our school. This isn't a return to a masking requirement in general. It's a very specific safety measure being taken when we know we have a positive case in a specific group.
Okay, and I'm going to continue if you don't mind.
Keep going.
The positive case is a classroom case, not a relative of a student in a classroom case. Is that
Yes.
correct?
It would be only the
That's-
person who was positive.
So someone has, one of your classrooms has tested positive, we say, look, we'd like this class for the next maximum 5 days, essentially, because if it happens on a Friday, really it's 3 days. To ask for masks and say, look, just bear with us. Let's make sure everybody else is in a good spot. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. So really the downside is pushback if someone says, I really don't want my kid and it's not a loss, I'm not going to do it.
Right. And I think that it's a legitimate voice in that I've been so pleased in the cooperation everyone at our schools has done going along with the mask, whether they agreed with it or not. And so I am very humbly up here asking for that extension for a masking requirement should there be a positive case in a classroom. With, at the same time, expressing gratitude for everyone that kept wearing a mask, even when they didn't want to and didn't feel like they should have to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I do think you bring up a great point that as opposed to the universal mandate that you want it or not, it's too bad. This is in response to a specific thing. I'm in total agreement that I think we need to do that to protect our kids. So I think that's where we're going. I am curious, how many kids, because we had talked about that before, the youngest who have kind of, that's all they've known is wearing those masks around. What percentage of the kids in the elementaries are wearing the masks right now?
Well, as I say this, I'm going to look to Mrs. Serpa because she's in there every day too. But I'm going to say that it's probably half, maybe a little more than half that do not have a mask on. Okay.
That feels, oh, okay, I was just curious about that, how that would, yeah.
Well, and I'm talking about the campus in whole.
I got you.
Because we've gone around to every room on Monday. And then we also went around on Wednesday and really complimented our students on the fact that they haven't teased each other about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, and they haven't pressured each other regarding wearing a mask and not wearing a mask. And so we're very proud of the efforts that our parents are making at home to send that message, and also the job that we're doing with our teachers in class of being accepting and respectful of the choices that people are making.
That's wonderful news.
My middle schooler and high schooler are saying the same thing. So
That's great.
half or a little more than half wearing them, and they're not hearing any negative pressure because of it.
Okay, that's great news. Thank you so much.
I think the four of us are in agreement.
Yeah, we're all in agreement on this. So do we need to?
So
We need
here's
to hear
a
from
couple of
public
quick
too.
thoughts. The Nurse Pally has commented that she's going to hear back from the county
Yes.
regarding what their recommendations are, some clarity. Because as they said, there's a little shift in the way that they're phasing out what modifying quarantine means, because the rule doesn't really apply. That term doesn't really necessarily apply anymore. So just wanted to make sure that the board understands. I would recommend that the board take a motion, a second, and action on this, because as it is not a law currently, but we are allowed to make a jurisdictional decision, this would be enforceable by a board decision within the school district. So if a parent refused, for example, to not mask in the conditions that we just noted, or I would imagine that one of you would make a motion, we would be let them know that their child may not attend the classroom. We would do what we have done in the past, where there would be an isolation room, and they would need to be moved from the regular classroom during the time of the modified quarantine. If there is pushback, we're going to be enforcing it through a local rule, not through a state rule. And so that's an important piece of it. And I think the administration needs that support in order to be able to enforce this. So that's kind of where we are. And then if you vote this evening, regardless of what Nurse Pally finds, obviously the board could make a change another time, another board meeting or a special board meeting if you wanted to.
Okay, perfect. So can we have public comment prior, please? Okay, public comment?
Just looking for some clarification. If a student is vaccinated, does that mean that they are under modified quarantine or no?
I don't know. if
She's up there. I see
Oh,
her.
so, the student would not be in modified quarantine if they're fully vaccinated. So modified quarantine is just, applicable to those
This
that are
is what
not
you're
fully
talking-
vaccinated.
This is what you're talking about.
Okay, and I'm also being prompted to ask if vaccinated means boosted as well, boosted.
Yes, if eligible, yes.
Okay, I think my only comment is, especially at the high school, this is pretty much going to be unmanageable and unenforceable. I have no idea who's vaccinated and who isn't, and I don't know who's been a close contact from another classroom who then comes into my classroom. So, I mean, we could make the rule, but I'm not sure it's enforceable at the high school. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I
no,
mean,
I-
I think what we do is put it out there and do the best we can do, obviously.
I think we put it in for the elementaries only.
Just-
I think that trying to manage it at the middle school and the high school is an impossible task. You have no knowledge, you can't ask. And on top of that, they're transferring, 30 students, 22 students, 17 students.
Well, that's a good
every
point.
period. It's not manageable.
You're moving in and out. It's really hard to trace.
But at the elementary, okay, this is the condition that has to be met, right? Someone in that class, not my parent, but someone in that class has to have had a positive test. Okay, so that creates the situation where other people in that class are asked to wear a mask for a period of up to 5 days. And that's it. It's not, there's no modified, there's no vaccination, none of that applies. If you're vaccinated and you happen to have a positive test, guess what? It's exactly the same as if you're unvaccinated and you have a positive test. It doesn't matter. It's only if someone in that classroom has created that scenario for you.
I think that's how, because Nurse Powell is going to be finding out what the new definition of modified quarantine is. I think when we make this motion, we need to be specific about that.
Right, but the vaccine, right, vaccination status does not apply, is
Correct.
what I'm hearing trustee Pat say.
But I'm thinking.
Correct.
Okay, any other public comments right now? We need some. Yes, we have 4. Robin Pelk, this is your opportunity. You've waited for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you also for the feedback from the board and superintendent about the emails that I sent. And thank you for this really productive conversation about the close contact policies. I just want to say, and speaking for myself and several other parents I've been talking with, there is a really strong desire to take proactive actions right now to make sure that kids are as safe as possible as we do this transition in masking policies. And I, for one, appreciate our COVID protocols have worked really well throughout this last year to prevent in-school transmission. I'm grateful community case rates are low right now, but of course we know there's a surge, expected to come in a few weeks. And we also have to acknowledge, I think our success has likely been because of the universal masking. So I think the time is ripe to make a plan for how we're going to react to things like close contacts and potentially new surge or new variants. And so the 3 specific things I wanted to ask for are first, to ask the board and superintendent to work towards developing a plan for the next surge, including local metrics that would trigger reintroducing universal masking if necessary. Secondly, I just, completely endorse the decision to ensure that after close contact exposure, students in that were in that close contact group would be required to mask. And so thank you for the board, it sounds like, for supporting that decision. And the third thing is just I'd like to suggest there be an avenue for, other than the board meeting, something where with more back and forth, where parents can maybe work with and help Nurse Pally, who I think has I don't understand how she does all these jobs as one person, but to help her and the various school sites to think of, ideas and help implement those ideas that can enhance safety even further, such as, introducing more portable air cleaners, which is something that some of you know I've been working on, or doing outreach to promote vaccination. So I love the idea of doing another clinic. I also think doing some outreach like a town hall similar to the one that we're doing for the fentanyl overdoses is another approach we might think about. But, there's tons of ideas, and I think a lot of parents that would want to help with that. So last thing, if there's any teachers or staff on the line who would like a Corsi Rosenthal box that's a portable air filter, please let me know. It's robin.pelk@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elliot Hazen, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the direction the board is going here on requiring masks for these close contacts during modified quarantine. As for board member Paff's comment about the high school, we do have honor codes in place for issues like cheating. And I don't see why this kind of policy couldn't apply to the masking as well. We don't need someone to be, going kid to kid to make sure they're applying, but saying by rule, by honor code, if you are in this situation, we'd recommend you, or not recommend, we'd require you to wear a mask. Seems somewhat reasonable to me. The other point that Robin brought up, but I could not agree more strongly with, is the district be proactive in planning for what a new strain, what another pandemic could bring. If we have outdoor teaching opportunities, when would masks have to be brought back? Is there a threshold for that, or some plan in place for how to deal with that, to keep the kids and teachers safe as possible? As again, PG did an excellent job with during the previous peaks of the pandemic, but I think this is something we're not expecting and we have to respond to. Being proactive will only help us moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your feedback. I'm trying to read. Nobody else at this time? There were a couple, maybe those comments were made. They lowered them. Okay, probably because that was.
I
made.
didn't lower it.
Well, we don't mean to miss you. Will you please share?
Okay, hi, this is Shannon McCarty, works at Forest Grove, PGTA current president. I just wanted to speak on this issue as a teacher and, as a parent as well, and of a high school student. I think that it is something that could be monitored in high school as well. I mean, the kids in my classroom know that if, student A got sick, the kids around them, that's who we tell them you were in close contact with that person. Or if you play at this person's house, you're in close contact with them, they had tested positive. So I don't think that it's as big of a deal. I think that it is making our students safe, and it would be a good idea to do it in middle school and high school as well, especially as some of them have their vaccine but haven't been completely boosted. And so since we're not requiring our students to show vaccination status, I think the best way to do that would be by making sure that masking is in place when someone's been exposed to COVID. As an elementary teacher, I think too that it is like a vital piece that, we have to prove vaccination for chicken pox and measles and so many other things that our kids aren't really getting sick from now, thank goodness to vaccinations. And so I think that we need to look for somehow as a district creating, if the state of California doesn't do it, requiring that students are vaccinated, because that's what keeps everyone safe. And I get that there are certain times when students can't get vaccinated, but if you're able to prove that you got vaccinated for chickenpox, I think you should have to prove you got vaccinated for COVID if you want to come to school. So I think that that's just, some of that's my own personal message, but I know as teachers, we're scared to death of the kids that aren't wearing masks, because we just don't know how serious it could be for students, as well as how serious it could be for those of us that haven't gotten COVID yet. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Garcia.
Lito Garcia, principal, Pacific Grove High School and Community High School. In regards to having our students wear masks if they have to do modified quarantine, prior to the change in mask mandates, anytime we had a positive case, whether it was a student or a staff member, part of the information that was provided to families and students stated that if students were not fully vaccinated, that they should go into a modified quarantine, meaning come to school, wear a mask, do not participate in extracurricular activities, so athletics or theater or band at that time. Now, we do not ask our students if they are vaccinated. So it was, as was mentioned earlier, an honor code. We just have to rely on our students and families that they will do the right thing. It is not something that the teaching staff can police. Because again, we cannot ask our students nor document if they are vaccinated. So informing students that they have been exposed to a positive case of COVID is still continuing, even under the new directions that we are following. And so providing them with the information still should continue. But again, if we do make this a mandate for our district, I just want to say it and be very clear. I will have no expectations of my teachers to go around and ask each student if they are supposed to be wearing a mask. I think they should be provided with the information so that they can make the correct choice. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So is it possible for us then to say this would be the expectation without the policing? Because you mentioned earlier, I think Dr. Porter said if a student refused to put on a mask in that classroom, then they would not be allowed to stay. See, that's the part I'm struggling with a little bit. If a third grader is like, you're not coming in if a mask's not on. I think they make absolutely correct and valid points that middle school and high school, you can't do that. But if I'm a parent of a third grader and I'm being told that, and I know my 10th grader,
I think that,
how do we do that? That's the point, right?
thank you. I think the mandate could be made without being too detailed about policing or not. I think that could just be implied through Principal Garcia's statement, but we could still just make the blanket mandate.
I generally do not support rules that one cannot enforce. So let's go with the elementary, put it in place where people are in fact in contact for 6 hours at a time. And then the high school, which is different, it's just different. I mean, we have different rules, and that's okay. So.
Oh, that's a little tough. Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, thanks. I know that the elementary level information regarding the vaccines that came out, the 5 to 11-year-olds is not great for what we thought it was going to be for effectiveness for reducing hospitalization and severe effects. And I just want to say, please still get your children if that's your, it's your choice right now, but I am fully in favor of vaccines. So I am not poo-pooing vaccines, but there is this moment in time that we have right now where there's kind of this limbo moment. And I think at least for elementary school, yes, if the board isn't comfortable doing middle and high school, I would be comfortable doing it with the honor code, fully acknowledging that we're not going to make teachers be the police of masks. But I'd be in favor of it K through 12. I would.
K through 12. See, my feeling is, look how much time we've spent discussing this, looking from so many different points of view. It's hard to express in a way that's it's simplified for parents for easy consumption. So we're saying, well, over here, you got to do this, over this age, you're going to do that. This has honor code, that doesn't. This is going to be strictly enforced. You'll be sent out of the room. It gets a little dicey. I have to say, I know not all rules are always enforced, and I get where you're coming from, but I think we should say the expectation is, this is our expectation. Well, you're kind of defiant. I'm glad you weren't my son. I don't know what to say. I'd send you to, well, I hear you, but I also worry about the high school. Where are you on this? Because I know, Carolyn, you mentioned K-12. Did I hear you correctly?
I would love to see us look at options. And what we're doing tonight is we're brainstorming, we're giving staff direction to, we want to give as clear direction as we can. They're also kind of waiting for hopefully for Dr. Moreno to step up and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. So I don't know if we have, I don't know. I mean, Ralph, I should ask you, how far into the details do we need to give you direction tonight on this?
I think the board needs to be as clear as possible in regards to what the expectations are so that we can enforce it. I just want to be clear, because especially over the last week, just before the masking regulations changed, we had a number of very adamant parents who were prepared for the masks to no longer be required. And this change will not be received well by everyone. And I just want to make sure that our administrative team has as much support as possible so that we're clearly enforcing what the intention is. So I think I agree and understand the honor code idea. But I tend to agree with Trustee Paff. It's really difficult for us to enforce, to put a rule in that we can't enforce. We just know we can't. And it makes it hard when we're addressing members of the community or parents who are insisting that, well, you can't go this way because it's not clear how we can make it work. It affects it. Just, I think as clear as you can be would help us out tremendously. And I think I tend to agree that the unenforceable rule, it will be very difficult for staff.
So we could do middle school and high school strongly recommend in this scenario and just have it be like another layer of recommendation that's clear. I know we're strongly recommending masks, but we can also say and add verbiage, we strongly recommend this to take place. And at the elementary school level, as a board, I'm hoping we can get consensus on this, that elementary is really important. And maybe we use PAP's reasoning that they're in the same class all day long. And we go full on as much as we can for the elementary.
My question I have is the specificity, Principal Garcia. When I remember in the beginning, when we get a note, we'd say there was a staff member who has it or a student has it. What I'm wondering is, can we say in room 17, fourth period, a student had tested positive? Can it be that specific so students are more cognizant?
Absolutely, that's what we have been doing from the very beginning.
Okay.
So if you're a parent, if you have a student in Miss Richmond's second period class and there's a positive case, every student and family member plus the teacher receives notification that there was a positive case. In addition, what I've been doing is notifying the entire staff stating that there was a positive case in this class in this period, so that any staff member who may have called in, let's say, if Mrs. Rice called in a student from Miss Richmond's second period class, then she knows, okay, there was a positive case in that class, or another staff member walked into that class to see Miss Richmond to relay a message, then that staff member knows. So we're ensuring that everybody is aware of it and that they have all of the appropriate information on what steps they need to take to keep themselves safe going forward.
Okay, that really helps. So my feeling is then that this would not be a quick little one-liner, that we make sure that the elementary, due to the length of time in classrooms, the age of the children, that there is a mandate that blah, blah, blah. And then for middle and high school, we will continue in the same vein that has been happening, that the specifics of cases will be reported to students and families. And we strongly encourage masking for everyone's safety. Okay, so does that feel kind of what you're going towards?
There's two separate motions. And just coming back.
One second, Carolyn.
On the question of honor code. The question of honor code, if you flunk the honor code because you plagiarized the paper, you fail the class. We are not failing somebody out of high school because they didn't wear a mask, right? That is not an appropriate response. So, you know.
We're asking people to take care of each other. That's all. Honor code is it's a volatile. It's a little touchy subject. But Carolyn, what do you have to say? Because we're getting ready to wrap this up.
Yeah, have we heard from Sean Roach on this, or any principal from the middle school? I would love to hear what they have to say.
He was there a minute ago. It would be, I'm fairly certain, very comparable to the high school because they're all moving everywhere.
I'd hate to assume. Well, oh, hey, Sean, you can't unmute. Oh, okay, Sean can't unmute. He's waving his hands, poor guy.
Well, we can't see him, so you see more than we do.
And my sign language is horrible. So it's very similar to what Principal Garcia said in regards. I mean, we follow the same protocols, and I actually would say that the mask wearing at the middle school is perhaps a little bit higher than it is at the elementary schools. we do the exact same protocol. So for us, it doesn't sound like too much is changing. Our pool testing has come back negative for the last, 7-8 weeks. I think we're doing the right thing at this point. I think the staff is cohesive. I think the students understand that they really don't want to go back to virtual learning. And so they're really taking that to heart, and they're doing the right thing. I hope that
Okay.
answered your question.
You surely did. And we now have 2 hands up, so we'll do that and then let's do some motions. Christina, can you share?
Hello, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Could a mask mandate or any other rule that you cannot enforce possibly discourage families from getting tested? That's just a thought that you should think about and consider before making these rules, that this could discourage many families from being tested because they don't want their children to wear masks. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Elliot Hazen.
Sorry, yes, I just wanted to clarify, Councilmember or Board Member Paff's point on the honor code. I was not suggesting that kids be expelled for not wearing masks, but following on what was mentioned, it's more just of the do unto others as you would have to do to you, and trust in the students themselves. I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Apologies.
I know, Elliot. Thanks.
Okay, then. All right, I think we're getting somewhere with consensus. Can we have a motion?
I make a motion that we require a up to 5-day mask mandate for someone close contact within the classroom at the elementary schools. Does not apply to the middle school or high school.
Okay, well, just finish it with where you are, because we're going to do the other one. You kept going. Okay, I second. Are you ready for a vote?
Out, so we're all on the same page. Right?
Yeah.
And I missed something in the
okay, Ralph.
The translation. Require the motion was made to require up to 5-day mask mandate within the classrooms at the elementary level. That's what I got. So I missed something. That's
after a positive exposure.
In the case of a positive exposure within that classroom.
And it's personnel and students, correct?
Staff and student, yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Go for it.
5-day mask mandate in a classroom at an elementary school.
Yes.
Only within the classroom, or?
Well, not the whole site.
No.
Only within that classroom.
Within.
So when those students are out in the playground.
If they are outdoors, we have separate rules for outdoor no masks, I believe, right?
So you're only applying it in the classroom.
I'm only applying in the classroom.
In the classroom.
In the classroom at the elementary level in the case of a positive exposure, staff or student in the classroom. Correct.
That's it. Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
I'm not ready for roll call. Okay.
Well, that might have to be.
Trustee Dawson.
Yes.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee Paff.
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0. Moving on to middle and high school.
I don't have a good motion.
Okay, do you want to say one?
Well, I don't think there's one necessary unless we're in agreement.
So we would just keep it as is.
Yeah, because
Okay.
basically it's as is right now, unless.
I think since it's so specific and it's been working well, as Sean Roach said, and Principal Garcia, stay as is.
While we are on the subject of COVID, I would like for the board to recommend that we do investigate an additional vaccination and information clinic with whatever
Monterey Fire Department.
whatever public entity has been assisting us so far.
Got it. And I think Nurse Pally is already going to.
She's on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Phew. That was something. Okay, are we ready? Let's move along. So we're now going to move on to contract services with Auto. Oh, sorry, we're never really done, are we?
No, just the final
Just
thing.
felt like it.
Another topic or idea that was brought up. What does the board feel about giving direction for Dr. Porras to investigate what other districts are doing as far as their local case numbers and if they're just looking at a specific threshold to require masks again?
Have Ralph bring back in planning.
The numbers.
Some plan, basically, for us to review as threshold numbers that make sense.
Well, and didn't Nurse Pally specifically
Yeah,
say that that's what she's chasing down now?
We have case numbers that are currently CDC community level. It's based on the website off Monterey County. Anyone can find it. It's there already posted. We mentioned these numbers the last time. It's on the website. So I think right now, just in regards to looking at those levels, I think it's fair to say if we leave the low level and go into moderate, that would be a reasonable time to revert back. Again, I'm just saying what I'm seeing, not what is being proposed.
Yeah.
So anyone out there listening, I'm not saying we're changing at this moment. But right now, those are the thresholds that seem to be agreed upon by everyone. We just had a county superintendent meeting this morning. None of this is being discussed anywhere right now. So it's just, I absolutely want to be proactive. Nurse Pally and I have talked about this already. And we mentioned this at the last time COVID report.
Right.
The numbers there are already there for what's a low, moderate, substantial, and high level. So what really would come down to is at what threshold the board would like to see us move back into mask mandate in the classrooms. And I would suspect that anywhere besides the low level would be that threshold. And then we would just really revert back to the same guidance we had before the mask mandate hit. None of this is coming off of anything that the county health department has said. I'm just repeating kind of a discussion point. So we can look into that more, but those are the numbers right now.
Okay, the point would be that if indeed there was this spike, which Dr. Pelk had referred to as possibly in the next several weeks, we can always call an emergency meeting of the board and do something very quickly if and when this variant hits us.
Right.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I'm good with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, of course. And I think it's good to bring it up and I think it's good to point out where those numbers can be found.
2 items, I think, Mr. Keller said there's a white truck outside, the lights on.
Oh.
And can you announce to everyone on Zoom that the camera is not working?
Yes, please be aware, you're seeing a lot of trustee Carolyn Swanson tonight. She's starring. You're representing the entire board, Carolyn, okay? So we aren't working in, and you've been working on it hard, but it's not working. Okay, but will it be working if you do a presentation on numbers and those kinds of things? Will those show up? Okay, it's just, they don't see our little tiny heads. All right, we'll cope with that. We'll cope with that. All right, we're now moving forward. Contract services with auto construction.
Thank you, President Dawson. As we know, we continue to have facilities work, construction work. And while we go into the projects, we have a regular, what I call routine maintenance. We also have in the process of preparing for Measure D projects for the summer. And the other project that we're working on is what we call the work order system from Facilitron. 2 years ago, we moved tracking of work orders into Facilitron because we have a contract with them to provide a rental service. So we might as well move that into that rather than tracking work orders in a really low-level Excel spreadsheet. So it started last year. So while looking to the work and also with a lot of requests coming in, we felt that it's time for us to really seek extra help. I just want to be clear that first of all, that we are very, very appreciative of our maintenance crew who is doing really, really a good job, given that we have a vacant position. And also we have person who is out. And also grounds crew, and also a custodian. Custodians really help, in any way that they can. So this is not to say that nothing about them not putting in, in terms of work orders, but we just knew extra because we have, fewer people than our current positions. It's just they're vacant right now. So the first order of that we're thinking is to really work with our CSA. We have multiple discussions with them, and they're very collaboratively working with us to guide us to give the processes for us to, first of all, we're going to embark on this process is to meet with the staff. But this is at least to make clear that we not in any way to contract out work that can be taken up by our existing staff, whether current maintenance and operations, transportation staff, or a grounds crew, or custodians, or even outside of that M&O department. So we'll look into that when we review the work order list. We'll take a deeper dive. We'll look at it, the priority list. And then the second, of course, the other level, higher level, the skills that cannot be provided by existing staff, or the one or two existing staff who are not, who prefer not to take on extra time at this time, we'll just have the board approve this contract with auto construction. And the budget is based on the savings of our vacant position. Just a real quick note about the position. We're in the constantly trying to advertise. We finally have 4 candidates so passed, and we'll do the interviews soon. So hopefully we're moving along, try to get the position filled. So again, this is just, first of all, to get it, and then we'll work with CACA, and then we'll work through the list of work order list to prioritize, and only those that can be handled by existing staff will contract out with auto construction. And just open up for questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Rivera.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Paff.
So a system like Facilitron is a tracking system with a few levels of review. So when I see something that says 448 in active status, knowing how systems like that in my office work, and that when I leave for 2 weeks, I end up with 200 things in active status that I have to resolve over the next 2 weeks, slow and steadily, I am not overly shocked. And I think that as you go through, we will, things that are completed but not checked off will be checked off. Things that are duplicates will be checked off. Things like clean the BASRP room prior to return in August 2020 will be checked off and done. And there, I suspect that there are quite a few of those based on this list Song gave. So I am happy that you're going through it. I appreciate the time you're spending on it. And I think that having someone else come in and use the Facilitron system that we have. And it's clear, frankly, that as you've said to me personally, that in a system like this, as you bring it in, you do have to retrain to make sure things get marked off, and that'll be continuing. So thank you.
Yeah, my comment would be that I'm a little different from where you're sitting, John, because I'm worried the number. And the thing that concerns me a bit is staff, if sometimes they feel I'm not being heard. I've asked for this to get fixed in my classroom. It's sometimes beyond inconvenience. They can feel that it's affects the way they're teaching or whatever. So I don't know why these numbers are this high. I'm very delighted they're going to get immediate attention and prioritizing and trying to discern what's most important, because I just want to make sure people feel like when they ask for something, it's heard. And I know you're addressing that.
That's correct. I think Trustee Paff and President Dawson, you both touch on the topic. This is the first effort looking into this. We exported this. It was a lot higher, the number, almost twice the number. We cleaned up to 448, and then we'll take a more deeper look. And there are some this is, again, this is a clean draft as to this point, and we'll rule out those duplications and rule out how do you define also some of those that we're already taken care of. Like today, President Path, look at it too. We saw some of those like going to the county office to pick up payroll checks and accounts payable checks. It's a priority. It's high. How do we define high? It's another thing that we'll look into it. Is urgent, may not be high in terms of skill level. So we'll go now that we have it, my team will look into it more and we'll clean it up. And also, and that's where we're going to triage to really take care of this.
That sounds great. Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. I am glad to hear that there's now a formalized kind of central method for tracking these work orders with Measure D and the public's kind of, eye on us even more with the passing of Measure D. I really want to make sure that optically it shows that we're doing something, but my most pressing concern is safety. So I am afraid of what might be lurking in these. So I am glad to hear that you're taking them seriously, that you're working through them. I do trust you, Song, that you're sifting through them with John. One thing I would like to see is in 30 to 60 days, I'd like to hear back to the board kind of just a review, like, hey, we're down to 60 and we've been able to mitigate these, or we're still at 400. That would be really important information, I think, for me to have. So if the board is okay with that, I'd love to get a follow-up on this.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, we just want to make sure our staff knows you're on it. And there are transitions here and there are voids within the within our staffing. So we just don't want things falling through the cracks. And the fact that this is top priority for you to figure this all out, I think it's a great idea. And what do you think is reasonable? As 30 days, 60 days? What do you think?
I think 60 days would be helpful because 30 days, we have a lot of projects in the works right now. And also we
A vacation.
frantically trying to fill the positions.
Yes.
And it take the personal persons, because we are trying to fill the director position and also the MNO level 2 position as well.
Yes.
And you get a little bit acclimatized, to get into the groove with everything. So
I think that's just great. Carolyn, does that work for you? 60 days?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to say it again, just keep an eye on those ones related directly to student and staff safety at the school sites.
Okay. All right. That sounds really good. So public comment on this now?
Beth Shamas. I was just concerned about the 21,000 that was being allotted for auto construction. It seems like a very small amount. And with the amount of projects that you have to look after, is that only because you're worried about like the CSEA part, that you don't want to go beyond that until you go back to them and kind of okay it with them that you're going to spend more time with auto construction?
well, actually it's smaller than even 21,000 for auto construction. This is what we put down here is a combination of 1 and 2, which is to pay CHCA staff overtime or extra time, plus whatever's left to do auto construction. And you are absolutely right, Ms. Shamas. I'm not sure how much we can get done. We're just trying to stay fiscally within the realm, but again, we'll have to take a look, balance the part about how much we can afford versus how many work orders that we can take care of within the realm of this fiscal constraints.
Okay, so it'll definitely come back again.
Probably.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment at this point? May I have a motion, please?
Motion to accept the contract for services with auto construction.
Second.
The motion was made by trustee Paff, seconded by trustee Rivera. May I have a roll call vote?
Trustee Dawson.
Aye.
Trustee Rivera.
Aye.
Trustee John Pav.
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Thank you again, Sol.
Okay, next we'll move on, please, to resolution 1087 to teach.
Good evening, President Dawson, members of the board and the public. We are presenting resolution 1087 this evening. It is a resolution to teach. It authorizes a teacher outside their credentialed area with enough units that shows expertise in the area to teach the subject matter. This is provided through education code as an interim. It allows flexibility, and the board authorizing this will allow our current teacher, who has actually 20 semester units in art, to continue teaching art while we work on her authorization with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Okay, thank you so much. Board comments?
I think this is a very smart move.
Okay, smart move. Smart move. Carolyn Swanson?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to do this, and I'm glad we don't have a lot of these, but I don't think we really have an option to not approve it, because if I remember correctly, Billy, that would mean that this person would be removed from their position.
She would be, yeah, that, or we would hire a credentialed art teacher to work with her.
Mhm. And you're hoping that this will be resolved by next school year, this fall? mean,
Yes, for sure, definitely.
I think that's reasonable. And this is the middle school, right?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by this because it's 1.5 credits necessary to be fully authorized.
You know, that's what we received back from the commission. The letters that are really form letters that come back to us from the commission. And the specific that was listed was that she needs an additional 1.5 units. So what that tells me is they are not accepting something on her transcripts that we submitted, and for whatever reason. And so I'm in contact with the commission now to find out what that reason is, and then we can move forward from there.
Yeah, I'm just, again, we're in March and she's been teaching this since August, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and it's taken that long to get the credentialing people to.
Yeah, it's a slow process.
Oh, that's an understatement, I think. Okay, well, it also, the thing that popped in my mind was when we have Ani come in here and do the SARC and talk about everybody being fully credentialed and there's nothing out there that's suspect. This is suspect, so.
Well, I wouldn't say, to me, it's not suspect. We know she has the units in art to meet the authorization. What I don't know is why they pulled a class. And so if they tell us that and they still say we need another 1.5 additional units, then she'll take a course to get that done.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I would just say for the future, I'd sure love to see this happening in July, especially if you're saying this is normal for this stuff to take so long. She knew she was going to be teaching art last.
Yeah, but we fully thought she had all the units to meet the requirement.
Okay.
So we put through, and she was never not on some sort of authorization. So when you, when someone's applying for an authorization and we put all the appropriate document together as a package and send it to the commission, they then, during that interim time between them either giving us notice like they did or accepting and giving the person the authorization, we put them on what's called a temporary county certificate. So
Okay.
the county is fully aware of all of this, and so the employee is legally authorized to work in the classroom.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Public comment? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded. Motion was made by Dr. Frank Rivera, seconded by Christy Dawson. May I have a roll call vote?
Trustee Dawson?
Aye.
Trustee Rivera?
Aye.
Trustee Path?
Aye.
Trustee Carolyn Swanson?
Aye.
So moved. It carries. We're good to go. She can teach art tomorrow.
Madam President, may I request that we take just a 4-minute recess to?
4 minutes?
I need to resolve a small technical glitch.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, we are reconvening March 17th, also known as St. Patrick's Day, for anyone who's confused. We will now move on to approval of the 2021-2022 second interim report. Song Chen Bin Dib, take it away.
Thank you, President Dawson. Okay, this is the last official report in terms of budget revisions for 21-22. It's called the second interim. Is for actuals from July 1st through January 31st, and we have until March 15. But because of the first board meeting is early in March, we asked for a special request to county office to grant it into today, the 17th. And we have submitted all the forms already to county office. It's just pending board's approval and a signature page to the county. This is second interim, and let's me to oh, I have to do a share screen here. Okay. All right. Is it visible?
Can it get a
Or is it-
little bigger?
Okay, let's see that. How about this?
Much better, thank you.
Okay.
And we can see it in Zoom land.
Say it again.
We can see it in Zoom land, just so you know. So we're.
Is that Carolyn?
Yeah, she said she can see it.
Okay.
Oh,
It's
perfect.
kind of wobbly out there.
There we go.
We need the hotspot worked on again, Carolyn.
Also for the public, there is a part of board packet. Because my PowerPoint, I cannot sometimes contain certain columns, but they're in terms of the overall, all the sheets, spreadsheets, and the state forms, they're all part of the board packet. And started on page 52. So the first interim, this is looking at combined general fund. That means unrestricted and restricted. Restricted meaning it covers all the funds like PG Pride, mental health of special ed funds, and also the federal COVID money. Generally, generically speaking, is COVID money, but all the means all the ELO, expanded learning opportunity grant, ESSO funds, and so on. They're considered restricted. So this is a combined depiction of the general fund. So between the first and second interim, we always look at, first of all, the operating surplus or deficit. And again, the second interim, it shows 280,546. And we always said this is not really an operating deficit, but because of carryover funds from last year, meaning out of this in the total expenditures, there are $1,043,000, $444 actually money that we received last year, and then we're spending it this year. The purchase order or paying for personnel and such, they're showing in the expenditures column, but not in the revenue column. Therefore, artificially shows a deficit. But when you take that out, it's about $700,000 difference. This year is the operating surplus. So I just want to point it out. And then the other thing let me just probably, I think I do have it in there, the other side to talk about the reserve, but I can just real quickly talk about here as well. Because by law, we have not only present the current budget year, but also the 2 subsequent fiscal years. It would be this year, this column in here, 22, 23, and 23, 24. So the 2 subsequent fiscal years, because of the recent receipts, property tax receipts that we have collected for December, especially one of the larger group of sums of money that we'll receive for property tax. That first one is December, the second one is April, but we also have received January and February. We look at it as slightly above projections. Instead of the 3.12 is 4.36, and we up that projection next year at 5.15 instead of 5% at first interim. And then for the third year, we increased by 1% instead of 3.15, we increased it 4.15. And this were part of assumptions that we presented to the board at the last board meeting. Therefore, we're applying now for subsequent budget years, and we'll apply that when we present the adopted budget for 22-23 in June. So those assumptions is from the fundamental assumptions we are using. So with that, reserves show 15.3, 19%, and 23.4%. And again, I want to emphasize this. We have not officially really finished negotiations yet. So anytime that we do a percentage settlement, let's say just hypothetical number of 3%, you have to subtract it 3 times because the salaries, they're ongoing. Any amount that we settle in here in this first year, 22, 21, 22, we don't have it in 22, 23. Therefore, you need to put the same cost with step and column. That means you have a compound it going to the year 3 times. So very simply, at least you have to subtract 9% from here, maybe more because of step and column for staff. Every group, not every step member, but a good percentage of every group will have a step and column, a natural migration. So you just subtract it. So I just want to, again, to remind us that it's not, let's say with 3%, you have it subtracted from here to stay at 20%. It's not the case. You minus at least 9+%. Okay, so next thing we talk about in here, this is again to emphasize about the carryover funds. It shows that we spent $1,043,044. You take that out, the operating surplus for 21-22 at second interim is $762,898. The next thing is the components of fund balance. We show in here again, just to a little bit more and actually bigger fonts to show the percentage of the fund balance, but also components of fund balance. We have various, because we basically school district, we have also not only the percentage of 3% reserve, but also we have to set aside 0.5 property tax reserve, basic reserve, and deferred maintenance, stirs and purrs, because as we know, there's many ups and downs of that. And with that, the total is 15.3% for second interim. So this actually just wraps up the general fund. I will just proceed with the other funds, President Dawson.
Please.
Okay. Okay, the next fund is an incremental fund number. This is actually set by CDE, it's Adult Education Fund. A second interim, it shows that it has an operating deficit, but it's really not a deficit. It's similar in terms of condition as general fund. It's just carryover funds from last year and then spending that money that's prescribed for a specific purpose. So right now it's projected $2.7 million. Again, second interim, just projections. We will not know actual costs until we close the books in September. So the $2.7 million, $18,440. That leaves a reserve of $1.783 million. Is at this point for the 2 out years, we just show pretty much a slight adjustment how much is spending each category, expenditures categories, certificate salaries, and also classify and other expenditures as well. I think I do have it in here, which is part of the board packet as well. The adjustments or changes since the first interim, since December, as you can see, just slight adjustment every for each of the line items, and kind of explain here. For adult school, is just a lot of them depends on the enrollment classes, the number of enrollment. So if that is down, you're not going to have a class. Therefore, we'll adjust the salaries for the budget correspondingly. The books and supplies, this was planned for spending down from the carryover funds from last year for iMac, lab, tech, and Chromebooks. And the other is just minor adjustment, capital outlay for fencing project. Again, this was planned for. Next one is Child Development Fund. Real quick, let's take a look at the reserve level. This is a fund that has two major components. We have the state preschool, but also BASRP. As we know, because of the pandemic, the BSRP collections were really severely impacted. And as you can see, last year, when we closed the books, the board approved as planned contribution, therefore ready to help us to stay solvent, actually to stay positive. And until they incrementally this year, see whether they can get back to the level of BSRP childcare collections. But at this point, it shows $106,000 as of second interim. And we're recommending a $45,000 and $55,000 contribution for your budget year, out year 1 and 2. But again, we'll take a look after we close the books, and also when we whether collections will be actually as projected for this year or not. This is just, again, estimates. It could potentially could be higher, could be lower, the 45,000. That's still from a general fund contribution in order for this fund to stay positive. In terms of budget adjustment, since the first interim, not high level, as you can see in here, classified increase because, again, substitute costs. And then corresponding to that would be the benefits or the statutory benefits. Every time we have a dollar salary increase, either certificated or classified, the district as an employer, we have to pay either PERS or STIRS, depending on the category of the staff, but also unemployment insurance, SUI, Medicare, Social Security, and workers' comp. The next fund is cafeteria fund. This is cafeteria fund. We will have adjustments when we close the books. We didn't get to it as second interim to look at all the, meals, universal meals that we provide to the kids. Right now, every child can eat for free. And that helps us in terms of how our claims for reimbursements from the state and federal government. So we'll see the actual money reimbursements dollars that we'll get at the end of this year. And then we adjusted slightly in terms of other salaries. And then it's pretty much the same thing because classified costs because of substitute costs. We have staff who are out, members who are out, so we have to provide help. Fund 14 is different maintenance. There are no budget changes for as far as until the second interim. Still projected a receipt $93,372, and that $500 is actually interest income. The rates are really low, the interest rates, and we just it's really we presented to the board quarterly. It's already less than in the tens of percent. And then we budgeted $25,000 so far. We'll see. Perhaps later on we're going to come back to use this money or the capital outlay, because we have like S4 projects or other things that is really not funded by Measure D or the routine restricted fund within a general fund. So these are a couple of areas that we need to tap into to help us pay for projects. The next one is Fund 20. This is a fund that we had used this in past to for post-employment, set aside funds for post-employment benefits, but we have used that funds, and this is just a residual amount of a little bit over $6,000. No budget changes in the first interim. The next one is Fund 21. Now this fund, we have two authorizations. We have Measure A, which is education technology bond, and then we also have Measure D, which is facilities bond in here, and they're really recorded within, classified really well recorded with clear delineation in our books, in our financial system escape. So the next board meeting will be bringing Series D resolutions authorization for this year. And this is a fourth series of Measure A, education technology bond. The voters approved that years ago, and this is up to 6 series, $18 million. And this is the 4th series. It's about $2 million and it's much needed. And then the rest is just showing that the projected expenditures, not just again Measure A, but also Measure D as well. Again, Measure D is more, I think the public and the board can see it better when we present a project list. The director has presented a project list in here, but this is just a aggregate of all the 2 measures together. Real quickly, showing in here for next year, 23-24, another yellow, the $6.5 million. That's the 2nd series that we are planning for next spring for Measure D, the facilities bond, 2nd series we're planning. And because the money that we have issued last year is for every 2 or 3 years, and we're going to spend it down. We're going to spend the money for projects this summer for the Measure D facilities bond. So we need the money again in the spring so that we can have it for the summer of 23. The last one is the capital outlay fund, and that is Fund 40. The primary source of income is our rental from David Avenue Charter School. And in the year 2 and year 3, we just up it by estimated percentage is actually consumer price index as part of agreement with them. So depending on what the actual rate is, we'll increase that when we bring the contract back to the board in June. Now this is to pay off the portable that we lease to own. So this is the payment, and I think is the last payment is next year. So with that, we're going to have, hopefully can really start to build up a little bit this fund again, because we're going to pay off the last payment. I believe it was 7-year payment for the portables that we leased. Next thing is about, we have the latest update from school services about the reserve level. The board would like to see this. This is showing unified school district, LCFF school districts and basic ed school districts together. As you can see, the reserve level has gone up for a variety of reasons. 2021, at the close of the books, the average for unified school district is 22.36%. Remember, ours is only 15+%, and we are basic school district earlier. So when you saw the first chart, so we're lower than even LCFF school districts. This is the average. The next one, this shows right now with the new law that we have to, school district have to set aside reserve level, no more than 10%. This shows that we're exempt because we, for attendance school districts with attendance lower than 2501 or community-based funded, quote unquote, basic ed school districts. So we exempt from this required no more than 10% reserve. I think the last one is showing the basic aid. I know President Dawson, you asked about looking at other school districts. We have the list, but we haven't completely reconciled the list yet, comparing to other basic aid school districts like Hillsborough, Carmel, Tamalpais Union High School District and others. We in the midst of doing that, but we also in the midst of building a 22-23 budget. So, well, we hopefully we'll get it in the next budget presentation. I think that's it. Just open up for questions.
I'm sure. Thank you very much. As usual, you do a wonderful summation and presentation. Could you just briefly on slide 7, the red, and I know this is 23-24, but it shows that 87. Slide 7 of her presentation.
Is it the Fund 13?
Yes.
Okay.
Cafeteria Fund, Fund 13. That red scares me, obviously.
Like, yes, absolutely. It shows this 87,000. A very good catch. What we are doing now, because a second interim, it shows projected receipts for federal revenue. It's 930,000. We'll see how much when we close the books. We believe could be a little bit more. Also with the expenditures, hopefully we'll see whether it would be less or not. Now, yes, you notice also in the past, the general fund would contribute because this fund was not self-sufficient. It was never was. And staff really worked really hard to do it, but it's just not tenable. So we stopped last year because of the universal meals. We receive more reimbursement. But at some point, when we look at it, when we built the budget for 22, 23, and then going to the out years, we, depending on the situation, we probably will make a recommendation to the board that we resume the contribution from general fund, and whether to what level we'll have to assess.
Great, thank you very much. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Song. Couple things, just, you talked about 23.36% as an average for schools. The one thing to really reconcile against that is, while we have a lower amount, ours should be a lot more stable, particularly in the outgoing years. Again, I think there's been a lot of funding that's come in that's just not going to be there, but we didn't qualify for it, so we're not going to lose it, which is kind of a positive of that, even if we are only at 15%. Cafeteria fund, what I made a note on is we didn't contribute, which is good. But the last 2 summers, I believe we have continued to provide food over summer. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was paid out of the ESSA funds.
Is there a current plan? Do we know what the state has required at this point?
No, we just, it does not meet the requirements anymore.
So that's going away and we will not be doing that this thing. Now, I don't think that affects our bottom line. It was all reimbursed, so it doesn't change anything for us.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. I guess that's it. So you have not included the bond numbers and you won't until we get them back.
That's correct.
Okay. And we are not subject to the reserve cap that is to be triggered. And I guess that's, there are 3 items that have to be met for that to occur?
But also exempt for basic aid school districts.
It's basic aid, right?
That's correct. And
we're below 2,500 students, so.
right, exactly. And the state does recognize the volatility of community-based funded school districts. They're based on the local assessments and receipts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Carolyn?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, as always, very well done. Walking through this each time, it's just reinforces and it helps us be aware of the money, the bottom line. And it's also, I think it's important as we're finishing negotiations, you're saying that for the next 3 years, you're going to see whatever changes you make to salaries. It affects us obviously into the future, which is important to know. Public comment now, please. Yes, Miss Public.
Beth Shamas. I have trouble considering Pacific Grove as a volatile budget area. I mean, we've never really, the only time was in the big financial meltdown in 2007, 2008. We continue to go up. So, I mean, I'm really bothered by the amount that's in the reserve. Unless you say it's in the reserve, and I'm going to check with you, Song, because I didn't know whether you meant this, but are you saying that you're building into the reserve the increases in STRS and PERS? Is that in your mind that part of the money that's in that reserve is kind of being set aside for those kinds of increases?
The components fund balance are those is part of the, like, for example, second interim, the 15.3% includes the stirs and purrs. So we don't need that. It's part of the 15% already. Now, when you say the percentage, when after we settle, you're gonna see this percentage drops drastically in year 3.
Okay, the reserve. will
That's
drop.
correct.
Yes.
With deficit spending.
Okay, okay. Well, and then it'll just build back up.
Fingers crossed. Okay, any other public comment at this time? Virtual, anything? Okay, all right, thank you so much. What we need to do now is move for an approval, and I'll make that motion for approval of the 21-22 second interim report.
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Christy Dawson and seconded by Dr. Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Aye.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Paff,
Aye.
trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Aye.
Next, we move on to ratification of independent consultant agreement for NorCal BATS virtual presentation with Robert H. Down Elementary second graders.
That was pretty self-explanatory.
It's a long intro and it explains a lot, but we want to hear from you.
Okay, so good evening, proud principal of Robert Down Elementary School, Sean Keller, once again. Yes, we had a presentation from NorCal BATS in October. And last year, the same presenter gave the BAT presentation. The teacher paid for it on her own and did not seek reimbursement last year. And when it happened again this year, she paid the presenter, and now she is seeking reimbursement through the PG Pride grant that she submitted. So we're learning that presenters are consultants and they need a contract to be approved.
We're all growing and learning all the
We
time.
are.
Thank you for sharing. Do we have any questions? Dr. Rivera?
None.
Nor do I. Carolyn, any questions?
Of course, we would like it to happen in advance and everyone know everything, but I think that's really hard, especially this year. So I'm glad there's a little bit of grace being given, and yeah, there's not much more to say. Thank you.
Any public comment about the BATS?
Well, may I have a
I'm
comment?
sorry.
Actually, Sean, my understanding is we have directed a change in practice, generally speaking, and that in past years, this might have been paid directly by PG Pride through the school, and now we are making sure everything goes through the financial office. Is that a true statement?
Correct. And we want to make sure that all contracts are approved by the
All
board.
contracts. So in years past, we might not have seen it in any situation simply because it would have been kind of a pass through without actually going through. And we don't want that to happen. So this is a little bit of change in practice is my understanding. So
That's correct, because the donations to from a nonprofit entity to a public entity like us, we have to go to the Board of Education for approval. And therefore contracts, any expenditures associated with that donations will have the board approve as well.
thank you.
Perfect. So next year
correct.
we'll see it early and we're ready.
Okay, and
Thank
we'll be
you.
ready too.
All righty, that works for us.
Thank you.
Okay, no public comment being seen. A motion, please.
I make a motion to accept the BAT contract.
That contract.
Second.
Okay, motion made by John Paff, seconded by Frank Rivera. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dawson,
Yes.
trustee Rivera,
Aye.
trustee Paff,
Aye.
trustee Swanson.
Aye.
All right, next we move on to board calendar, future meetings. Any change in that, Dr. Porras?
No, Madam President, there are no changes at this point, so no action is required unless the board would like to do so.
When do, Mayor?
Would you like to say something?
When do we see next year's initial calendar?
As soon as we get an executive assistant. Just kidding. I don't know. I gotta work on that one.
A week from Tuesday.
I don't know how that
Every day we work.
happens yet.
In
so I'm
your
working on
spare
that.
time, in your spare time, yeah, chop,
And the
chop.
first cut on the next budget, the 2022-23 is August?
August.
Well, no, it's
The-
June,
It's June, right?
Yes.
It's before the end of this year,
Yes.
first revision.
well, first draft, and then
It's
final
probably
approval,
on here, and I
second board
just-
meeting.
I'm sorry, there it is, 2022-23, June 2nd. Thank you. Okay, thank you. No, I have no revision. I just question. Thanks.
Oh, okay, well, thank you. All right, no action needs to be taken at this point because there's no change. Now we'll move on to information discussion. And we look forward to hearing from Director of Technology Services Goals, please. Your debut, please join us, and you're dressed so beautifully.
Hello, Louis Algazi.
Hello.
Coming to the district, there's a lot, I realize how much there is actually going on. Not only in technology department, but everywhere else. I consolidated my thoughts and goals into 3 areas: network, security, and communication. The network upgrade that was done last year, I think, maybe 2 years ago, using Cisco Meraki equipment is a huge step forward. But there are still a few holes still in the network, areas that aren't the access points are in, but a lot of old wiring and a lot of spots where the network is not kind of up to speed. So I'd like to kind of close a lot of those holes. That's one item. I noticed there are very few UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, in the network rooms. I had talked to Matt Kelly before he left, and he said there was a site-wide solar power project going on. I think that'll do a lot, but until that gets into place, I'm not sure when that's gonna hit, but until that gets into place, I think investing in a handful of UPSs is a good idea. And once again, the network wiring, there's a handful of older cabling. And like I said, areas where the cables are, where there's from the switch, it goes to another location, then it goes to a dumb switch is what we call it, and then into 5 different devices. I think that those types of wiring we need to kind of work on and improve, get some additional smart switches in those areas, stuff like that. The network tech plan alignment is the network projects align with tech plan 2B. The security projects, which aligns with tech plan 2B and 2C, our camera system. The NVR, if you know what that is, the video recorder that records all the cameras, is out of warranty and getting 5 years old or so. We need to invest in at least a new NVR. We have been looking at, my predecessor was looking at Meraki from Cisco and Bricata network camera system integration. Turns out those are extremely expensive systems. So we're looking at lower priced systems that either has an NVR or has a cloud-based NVR that uses the existing cameras, and then over time we can upgrade the cameras as needed. Another part of security is some of the processes that I've been familiar with in a lot of organizations are not here. And I hate to pick on the HR department, but the HR offboarding processes. In my mind, not having a good HR offboarding process is a security hole. An ex-employee can come back into the system, and if their accounts are not decommissioned soon after they leave, and could wreak havoc. So I think that's an important piece. And then also just general computer security in terms of where files are stored. A lot of files are still on people's laptops that can easily get lost or stolen. And then not only do we lose the files, but then someone else has those files. So my kind of goal is to develop a plan, of course, but to consolidate around the Google Drive infrastructure and store as many files in there as possible. The third area is communication, internal and external. I'd like to see an update to the website to simplify to really address the different audiences. So the external website should address the needs of the parents and the community, while moving a lot of the items that are on the external, currently on the external website into an intranet site that is specifically geared towards staff. And so all their resources on their intranet site, that's something I've seen at near postgraduate school and several other organizations that is very beneficial. It protects a lot of the internal information. Supporting the teachers. Oh, one of the things okay, I'll come back to that. One of the supporting the teachers is important. We're using Google Docs, a Google form and Google Docs for IT ticketing system, which is really not up to speed. Matt Binder and I have started looking at a real database driven IT ticketing system that we can do a better job of tracking the tickets, the IT tickets, and show completion and get some real data off of that. And finally, something I've seen in other organizations is a project or task management system. Right now, a lot of things are kind of coordinated by the seat of the pants and stored in people's heads. Hey, I'm working on this project, but then when that person leaves, the next person has to come there and pick up the pieces and try to figure out what was going on. That happened to me with a handful of projects. I've used project and task management systems in other organizations, been very successful if a lot of people buy into it. Some of these projects are IT projects where it's primarily IT changes. A lot of these are process changes, which is a lot more difficult because many people have to change on a different way of doing things. The last thing I wanted to mention that I forgot is under security, under the computer security is an asset management system. Right now, we have pretty good track of the Chromebooks and which students are checked out, which Chromebooks and in which classroom. We have very little tracking of laptops. I think we have no tracking of laptops in possession by staff. So same thing, that as part of the offboarding process, if a staff picks up their laptops and takes it home.
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
I mean, look at this one, it's checked out with a barcode.
In what database is that stored?
With a high school library system.
Oh, now we're getting somewhere.
Now we're getting somewhere.
But don't say there's no track.
There's some tracking, yes.
If I lose it, I'm in trouble.
So anyway, I stand corrected in some areas, but I think a centralized asset management system that's devoted for IT resources, including tracking when licenses expire, when all the different hardware. It'll also allow us to track what technologies in what room, kind of thing, if done correctly. I'm open to questions.
All right.
Thank you so much for sharing your goals with us. I am on the user end of an intranet site and IT ticketing system, and when done correctly, it's very pleasing. So I'm glad that you're looking forward to this. I agree the website could use an update. And finally, I'd just like to welcome you to the district and I look forward to great things.
Okay. Trustee Paff.
Louis, welcome aboard.
Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Hi, Louis. It's nice to meet you. I do have a district Chromebook, just so you know. I want to just put that out there. If you want to track it, you're welcome to do that. I'm not sure if it's in any database. I really appreciated. I actually just as a heads up for the next item too. I liked both of these technology items. I realize you are IT and there is also ET. But I just overall, I got kind of excited to know that we're going to be tightening up some loose ends. And is there some sort of, because you do seem like an expert, I looked up your resume. So is there some sort, okay, so my concern is, how did we get here? So the only reason that we know that we're here with these loose ends is because we had staff turnover. And I would like to see something long-term put in place, some sort of standards Like, I love the work that you're talking about, your priorities, but how do we make sure that those stay long-term and we continue to build on them so that, you know, in 6 or 8 or 20 years, when you maybe move on, we're not here again. I don't want to be here again.
The only recommendation I can make right now is put in place some standard operating procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to, well, just like file management, Dr. Porras asked me to put together a file management standard operating procedure. So everyone uses the same structure all the time. And it's relatively easy to put this together. Once again, the hard part is making sure everyone follows it. Use strong password, use a strong password on your laptop. Store your files in Google Drive, kind of thing. There's a lot of people who say, no, I want to keep it on my laptop because I know it's belongs to me, and that's how we've always done it. So I think to go back to your question, I think developing standard operating procedures is a good way to do it, but they have to be enforced as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we can get a little check-in with you. I'm sure we're going to see you quite often. So I would love to just kind of keep up on that as a board. Like maybe a year from now, we get an update on what kind of standards are being implemented, because I'm sure you need some time to kind of get your feet under you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, and that was my question. It's great to have you come in with a fresh set of eyes and look at things and see what needs to be addressed. These are pretty great ideas. Implementation wise, do you have kind of a gut thought about how long this might take to enroll these various ideas?
Well, a lot of them, because they're in the tech plan, a lot of them are going to be tracked in the tech plan. Matt has definitely incorporated, I think 1 or 2 of them, like specifically since I've gotten here into the tech plan. So I think that's going to be the direction. But I think there's going to be additional documentation that's going to be needed. I haven't put together kind of like a timeline. I want to accomplish this. I'm still kind of getting comfortable with everything before I can put together some big picture, before I can look years into the future.
Okay, well, I'm echoing everybody. Welcome aboard. Thank you so much for presenting this tonight.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Is there any public comment at this point?
I can't see it.
Yeah, I know. You're not there to tell yourself. All righty. Okay, well, thank you so much. Okay, next is the Ed Tech Plan 22 through 25.
Good evening, members of the board, public. Matthew Binder, Director of Ed Tech. Thank you, Director Algazi, for mentioning a few things that we're going to present to you this evening. This is a very high level, a big picture look at the tech plan, the draft tech plan, 3-year strategic for 22 through 25. And I'll just need some screen sharing here. I just need to screen share. Oh, thank you.
Oh, I forgot.
Thank you. All right. So like I mentioned, we're going to basically present a very big picture view of what we propose to be the plan for the next 3 years in PGUSD with regards to tech integration and management. First off, some acknowledgements are in order because this is certainly not me alone. I have been fortunate, honored to work with everyone you see on this list, including some others that are no longer with the district, to really do this work, to craft this plan out. Their input was invaluable, and I wouldn't be standing here in front of you tonight if it wasn't for everybody listed. And in particular, thank you to Director Algazi for his partnership in the short time that he's been here. He's already provided a lot of great insight and leadership, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. So a timeline, I think, to kind of give us some context here as to what has occurred
since the passage of Measure A, Ed Tech Bond back in 2014. These are some of the more notable technology-related events. That passage preceded pretty much right before the requirement for online state testing. And it came at obviously a well-timed place in history, because that prepared us for what we needed to provide students in order for them to successfully take the SBAC the first year in 2015. That obviously was not the sole reason for the funding. We used the funding to obviously enhance access and availability of technology across the district since then. Moving forward, we presented a tech plan in 2016, which was another 3-year. That was kind of the first comprehensive ed tech plan that I was involved with, as I was basically appointed Director of Educational Technology for the district. Then shortly after that, late 2017, we were fortunate enough to bring on the digital teacher for K-5 as presented in that tech plan, that original tech plan. And that, of course, is still in place and assumed by Mr. Andrew Bradley, who I've been fortunate and honored to work with over the past 5 years or so. And he's doing a phenomenal job. He's developed a plan for computer science and STEM education in elementary. All students get some form of enrichment in CS and STEM education because of the work that Mr. Bradley is doing. PG Tech as an actual entity, a defined and identifiable team, was launched in 2018, followed by some of the work that we started to do cross-functionally in the district, including network upgrades that was brought on and it started in 2019. We did a Chromebook fleet refresh with the Dell 3100s in 2020. And 2021, as you know, was our first go live year with the new student information system, Synergy Education. So those are some major developments in terms of what technology has kind of touched across those years. And so today we bring you a draft ed tech plan revised for 2022-25. The real reason for this plan, obviously, we intend to create a path forward that's real clear, unambiguous, address the current challenges head on, and more importantly, really present some solutions, some identifiable solutions for those challenges. And of course, to continue the longstanding practice of holding not only ourselves, but everybody involved in technology acquisition accountable and with full transparency. And of course, we have the Bond Oversight Committee, as well as, of course, the District Technology Committee and the core team as well for that. We did a needs analysis in late 21 to identify some current challenges. Director El Ghazi mentioned some of these in his presentation of his goals. Inventory hardware lifecycle management, that's a big one. Classroom technology alignment, standardization, and distribution. Training, support, communication, these are just ongoing with technology, emerging technologies. And then cybersecurity, threat detection and prevention is the other key piece that was mentioned as well. Now, like I said, this is a big picture, kind of high level view of the plan. And so with it, it's important to understand the structure of the plan. We essentially adapted it from the previous version. So the structure is very similar. In other words, there are 3 areas of implementation, we call them. Area 1, digital learning and literacy. Area 2, which touches on the IT side of the house, is technology management, and Area 3, services and support. Each of those areas has an overarching goal supported by a set of specific outcomes, which collectively work towards reaching that goal. Those outcomes are then further spelled out by specific actions and steps, actions, and services that we can take that would allow us to reach the goal once those were implemented. Within those actions and services, that's what we call the implementation table in the plan itself. We have metrics, we have accountability measures, we have a general timeline, and we have provided a draft budget of what we project will be the cost of achieving those outcomes. So just to give you a sense of some of the more noteworthy projects or the more notable projects, I'll give you one from each of the three areas. Again, this is a broad plan. It's very thorough yet flexible. And so this is just intended to give you a sense of what is really in the plan itself without getting too specific. So for example, in digital learning and literacy, we are proposing to convert the existing computer labs at both Forest Grove and Robert Down and the middle school into flexible learning labs. We call them flex labs. These are labs that are basically designed to support a variety of different hands-on project-based technology-enriched type of lessons. To do so, not only is the technology going to be needed, we're going to need to purchase modular, lightweight, flexible, mobile furniture. We're going to have to think about redoing the flooring, maybe some of the walls, to present and create a space that is really flexible, can be reconfigured quickly, and it can be used for just a range of instructional and learning experiences. Outcome 2C, when we look at our second area, this would be technology management and security. We're looking at, as Director Algazi mentioned, upgrading or replacing portions of our security camera system and moving towards a more cloud-based managed system. And we've got a lot of work to do in this. It's obviously a very expensive proposal, but it is long overdue, I think, and one that I think we can handle in the next 3 years. Third area of implementation, this would be services and support. We are talking about an IT ticketing system that extends beyond the Google form. This would be an integrated, comprehensive platform that allows us to better track and manage and close tickets, and then also culminate some analytics out of the system so we know what areas of technology are receiving most of our efforts and attention. I'll wrap up by describing how we intend to actually engage the broader school community in this, because let's just be honest, nobody really has the time, at least not many of us has the time to dig into a close to 30-page technology plan. So we're going to strategize on how we can basically message the essence of what the plan contains. And one of the ways we're going to do that is to share kind of a infographic publication that really encapsulates and condenses, distills down the essence of the plan into a very easy, digestible, and accessible visual. So this is an example of a prototype we developed based on the content of the plan. And of course, we're going to hold and message the plan's initiation, the plan's progress over time, provide status reports as we normally kind of do in our common communication strategies at the technology committee level. And so there'll be public presented information on where we are along the way. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I anticipated presenting to you tonight with regards to the revised 22-25 3-year strategic ed tech plan. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Trustee Carolyn, let's start with you.
Matthew Binder, great job. I will
Thank
say,
you.
I really like this plan. I did take the time to read 30 pages of it, and I liked how it related to the IT side of things. I really appreciated a lot of the explanations that were in there that I was kind of craving for these two departments, but they also are like intertwined and really need to work symbiotically together. The flex classrooms, will you just kind of give me more information on that? And I'll just tell you what I know so far. I know that, you know, for example, at Forest Grove, we have a computer lab and the kids go once a week, I believe. And so what's the reasoning behind like the new furniture and the new technology? So I'm looking for like, what specifically are the kids going to be really doing in there that's different than now?
Yeah, great question. Well, again, a lot of this was really conceived by the work that our digital teacher is doing with robotics, STEM technology. A lot of his lessons require space, but a space that's inside that has access to mobile technology. When he's using some of the Ozobot kits, or he's having students design a pathway on the floor and program that pathway for some of the kits that they're using. That's an example of being able to move or place groups, small groups of students in a space that is large enough to hold all those students, but also flexible enough to move things around quickly so that the students can get to work and not be kind of hindered by large, heavy desks and things like that. The other aspect of this is kind of multimedia, so to speak. So like if students want to create a short video presentation behind a green screen or in front of a green screen, they could do that in one corner of the room, while some other students are using desktop workstations to do some graphic design. The other students are maybe using some presentation software in another corner of the room to create, a group project presentation along those lines. So it's multifaceted by design and flexible by nature. It has to almost support an entire range of learning that can exist and take place at the same time. It can also serve as a space where the desks, the furniture is brought together to exist as a more conventional or standard classroom configuration for online testing. So that's the vision of these spaces. It's maker space meets robotics meets STEM, and that's why it's called Flex, because it has to be able to do all kinds of things whenever it's needed.
And it's all sites or just 3 sites or?
Well, the plan proposes to do this at the 2 elementary sites that have computer labs right now. Robert Down's a little bit further on in this evolution because we've actually started some of the preliminary work there. Forest Grove that computer lab definitely needs from start to finish work on this. And then there's space at the middle school, either in the former computer lab, which is the 2nd floor space, or even portions of the existing wood shop that can be partitioned off to be used in this fashion.
And what's going on at the high school for this?
Great question. The high school has obviously pathways. It has career tech ed. It has a lot of programs already in place that are project-based, that are, steeped and immersed in students working in small groups and creating projects along those lines just for those academic areas. So, we want to put our energy in this, at least in the next 3 years at the elementary and middle, so that, we can see how this evolves upward. And if there's work to do at the high school, then we can potentially look at that.
Okay, and my last question is just that with the decisions that were made in this plan, I know you had the acknowledgements at the beginning that, so it feels like, I just want to confirm that there was, stakeholders from each sites, and I love that you had the parents on the committee, because those are the citizens and the people, we need to get all these folks. So can you just briefly talk about how you incorporated input from the community to develop this plan?
Sure. To address the first part of your question with regards to representation from the different sites. So the committee itself is comprised, as you saw on the slide, as you've read in the plan, from not only classified, but administrative as well as certificated folks from each of the schools in the district. That being said, even if we have a committee meeting, we're always encouraging others that don't normally sit on the committee to attend those meetings as well. So we have teachers, we have classified staff, admin that are at each of those meetings in one form or another. As you also saw in the plan, we have 3 sitting non-employee parents that are on this the committee this year as well.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you know, it's tough. I get it. And it's a 3 o'clock meeting, a 3:30 meeting on a Tuesday, and it's tough, obviously, to make that availability. But so the committee actually is representative, I believe. It's one of the largest committees we have in the district with so many current and consistent attendance from all over the district. And I would actually argue that it's probably the most representative in terms of just across the board, all stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Trustee Paff.
Thank you, Mr. Binder. So what you presented here in pages 197 to 219, the layout and basically this metrics of table, and I know you only touched on a few items. Really appreciate that we have basically an expected outcome when we're going to start a money plan-ish and a real metric against which to test. So I thank you for the efforts put in there by your committee and the detail of which this is laid out. Having gone through it, I also appreciate that you're integrating both halves of IT, you and I want to say Lewis because I can't remember your last name. Al-Ghazi, that's what it is. That's why. Director Al-Ghazi working together. And, you know, as you say, and as Lewis said earlier, yes, we have a ticketing system, but it was designed around 40 devices and not 2,000 devices. So consequently, going from Google Form ticketing, which was okay in 2016, you know, we have to progress. And I see the integration built in here, and I appreciate that from both of you. Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. One is oddly specific. We had a lot of pushback and requests for iPads, which I don't see in your technology for K1. And is that a necessity, a want, go away, what is that? Since we ultimately did buy a significant number.
Sure, we did. Yeah. And we are working on mostly Gen 5 right now with some Gen 6 iPads, which are the ones that are still updating. You know how Apple is notorious for basically planned obsolescence. With regards to iPads in general, we do have specific outcome in there that addresses the refresh of tablets for K1. We are exploring options of moving away from iPads to Chrome tablets. This is contingent on whether or not Chrome tablets provide like-for-like functionality from both the teacher and student experience. So we are planning in, I think, starting year 24, if I'm not mistaken in the plan, to look at implementing Chrome tablets as a replacement standard issue device for K1 students. Also, the cost savings alone would be significant if we moved away from iPads. And that's not saying much about management, because management is very challenging for iPads, and it would be much more advantageous for Chrome tablets to be able to manage them.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I know that we did try to do that 2.5 years ago, and I would state with not as much success as one might have hoped. So hopefully going forward, the Chrome tablets are better. Finally, the whole idea on flex classrooms and FlexClads precludes revisiting those classrooms, and this is really directed to Dr. Porras. Nikki would like her art room back, even though she's retired 7 years now. And I thought at some point we had actually discussed whether or not one-to-one devices means we don't necessarily need those classrooms as such anymore.
I think the direction that Director Binder is talking about has come up quite a bit in conversation over the last few years, especially in the tech committee. And again, I also applaud the work of the tech committee. It's just been extraordinary. Things change as we and evolve as we go forward. The flex classroom idea is not a new idea just to us. There are classrooms that have been converted this way many years ago. Think up in Napa Valley, New Tech High. They converted their classrooms into these kind of spaces years ago. I think it's a great way for us to incorporate group work with students towards project building. 1-for-1's great for doing the kind of work that we need them to do in Google Classroom and in their assignments in class, this kind of thing with Zoom. But the kind of space that the classrooms that we're talking about are really more of a learning environment versus just based on a device. And I think that's the direction. I think it's a wise direction. It's the right direction to go. I think we'll see more classrooms converting this way in more and more schools as time progresses.
I appreciate your answer. It doesn't address the rest of the question, right? Which is, we actually took away spaces that were in use 8 years ago with at least 9 or 10 or 11, with a handshake of a promise that eventually we'd have art rooms back. And we have now said we're not really going to do that.
Well, there are other space. There are other classrooms.
There are other classrooms going to be made available.
We may be able to do that too. Yeah. Well, I think again, it's part of it is a function of the times, and I remember that because I was here too.
I'm not arguing with the use of what you're suggesting. So
I get you. I think that we can certainly look to convert other classrooms if we can, depending on the usage of them. But I think this decision not to revert these back to art classrooms just now, but continuing forward in the direction it's going, is the appropriate way to go based on what we're currently dealing with. Didn't say we're giving up on art classrooms yet, but
fair enough. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
Due to time here, I'm going to reiterate, very impressed with the committee, how far reaching and the diversity, it was incredible. Presentation was wonderful, and this is what we get to do, is to read this, and it's well written, thorough, wonderful explanations. So thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you.
And I haven't been here long enough to know all the drama for the art teachers, but if I hang around a couple of decades, maybe
Neither
I'll
have
catch
I.
on. I don't know.
it's a while.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it greatly. Okay, we're moving on because time is of the essence.
Comment?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Didn't you have a comment? You're coming
Did
back.
not, but I'll be
I
brief.
did not.
I'll
How
be brief.
rude
Thank you.
of
It's
me. I'm
very,
so
the
sorry.
tables were very concise and easy to read. I really appreciate that. I saw digital citizenship in there a few times, which I really loved. And then I especially love the little graphic you had reminding us why we are all here, having the students right in the middle of it all. Thank you. That's all.
I'm very sorry that I missed you, Frank.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, that's very important. Thank you. Public comment now. Oh, here we go. No worries.
Just that I love this too. I read it all. And I'm very impressed. Just that if you look at our policy regarding technology, it's pretty outdated, it hasn't been looked at. And so just a reminder that all of these things in terms of policy goals could inform that. And this is a good example of what Gamut is not going to tell you to do, because Gamut has no way of knowing that you did this. So this is why, you know, a part of policy that you would have to do yourselves. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make one additional comment. My experience with Flex Spaces is good in that it does project-based learning for students. The difficult part about this, I've seen them, this type of space happen at Naval Postgraduate School, and it really didn't get utilized because the instructors did not adapt their teaching style to this project-based learning. So I think the Flex Space, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like an experiment at this point. The teachers that have bought into it, they're interested and excited to use it, but other teachers may not be. And just to address your one comment, an art class, in my opinion, an art studio is perfect for Flex Classroom, because students can move around and clear space for art and stuff like that.
But it's messy for computers. So.
The computers are not designed to be fixed in this. They're movable as well. And there's one comment online.
One comment. Erica. We gotta unmute her. She's waving, but there's more.
Erica Chavez, Robert Down. I just want to clarify because I apologize. I did not have the time to read the entire document. I've been doing other things with leprechauns, but I just want to make sure. I did hear Director Binder say something about new furniture and floors in some of these flex labs, and I want to make sure that that's all still coming from Measure A monies as opposed to Measure D monies, which is for like facilities, but I didn't know if floors then were reclassified. I just want a little bit of clarity on that, and I apologize for not reading the entire packet.
Sure, no problem. So in some of these outcomes, the funding that is being proposed for some of these outcomes, namely in this case, the Flex Lab, we did actually acknowledge that there will be funding needed for some of the facility type improvements that we will need to achieve in order for these spaces to be properly converted. For example, new flooring, that would not be something that we could pay out of Measure A. The language of Measure A does not include those kinds of expenses provisions. But we do know that facilities is a Measure D area. And so we are proposing that there will be funding needed. Not much, but probably needed from that source, along with potentially some general as well.
Thank you. Just as a resident and parent and things, I think keeping that fully transparent is important because we've now passed a tech measure and a bond measure for facilities. And I think it's really important that we're clear about where the monies are going and transparent for our voters and for all of our stakeholders. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, any more comments? Okay, we're ready to move forward, please, to information on the Division of State Architect, DSA, approval of the high school baseball bleachers and resolve DSA legacy projects.
Thank you, President Dawson. It's too bad the camera is not on. I'd like to introduce John Dominguez, who's owner of School Site Solutions. He's here. But let me just real briefly introduce this item. This is information because as we send the information side of the item, that we are finding potential challenges regarding the high school bleacher installation. The board approved this item, but we found that since then that we require DSA, and not just the grading issue in terms of accessibility, but also could be the switchback ramping system, which is we have yet to find out how much. We have started the process, putting a tracking system into the Department of Industrial Relations to get a tracking number. And then Mr. Dominguez will be working in terms of with DSA and also with Mr. Patry of Bailey Architectural Services, which the board has already approved the contract. And they are already helping us in terms of bidding documents, designs, if drawings are necessary to help us with the summer school projects, which would include, would not be this one, but it's going to be, they can help us with this process as well. And then with that, I think I'm going to introduce Mr. Dominguez. John Dominguez, are you on? Were you able to get in virtually? I know there's a password is required to go into a Zoom meeting. Oh, it's not.
Next
It's
time.
not. Next time. He tried. He emailed me saying he was not able to, and the link. So anyway, let's see here. Any other questions?
Yes, Trustee Paff.
Well, I just want to be clear here. We're going back. DSA is apparently so notoriously slow that they can actually fail to do their job and get back. And this is what we're looking at for things that they haven't signed off or from the first Measure D, actually, as it was 2009, 2010. And these are, from what you've said to me and what's written here, this is submissions by architects and has to go through, and we have to follow up before they approve the next one, but it doesn't in any manner actually adversely affect what we have in place.
That's correct.
But we also have this additional problem, strike that. That's the additional problem. The addition that 2009, 2010 projects weren't signed off. But the thing that started this is that our bleachers, which we approved, and the new press box or stand box are need an ADA ramp.
That's correct.
Have we looked at any other possible, instead of coming down the 45-degree angle, trying to approach that from other sides yet? Or is it actually, this just might be something where the architect comes up with a better idea
Right.
instead of creating a new switchback coming in from the other side of the tennis courts or some crazy thing, which is already less steep.
Something certainly we will, convey that, Mr. Dominguez would be looking into it. Because right now we already have it, because assembled the bleachers.
What do you expect will happen with DSA?
We, given the pandemic, the division has, obviously we didn't have to submit a lot of permits to DSA for the last year and a half, but they have in other K-12 and also K-14 entities, they have really increased the approval process because of need. So we'll find out soon enough. But which, like I said, is true. In the past, it's been pretty notorious.
Yeah. Going back to the 2009, 2010 sign off, is this now something where someone comes out and this is a one-day process, or someone comes out and this can extend forever and ever and ever? No one has experience, right? Because it hasn't happened yet, but.
Right. No, I think we will find out soon enough.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. So Song, when I was reading this in the packet, it had a blurb about, there was a line that, obviously this hasn't been certified, and there was a line that said, school board members could be held personally liable for uncertified projects. Can you talk about that? My questions specifically are, what? No, I'm just joking. My questions are, is it, what kind of liability? Is it because if somebody gets hurt and the project isn't certified, then we're on the hook? Do we need to close the stadium? Like, what kind of level of should we be feeling about this? And so I'm going to leave it at that. So what's going on with that?
I think the standards are pretty high in terms of whether the board members would be personally liable. Is you have, negligent, purposely negligent when this is, let's say, brought to the attention of the board. Funding was not appropriated for this specific purpose for whatever reason, when, the recommendations clearly for us to address the issue. So that kind of criteria. So, but it's very rarely the board, I would not see, a specific our board here not to address the issue.
Okay. And the reason that having it not certified since over a decade ago, that isn't normal, right? Somewhere along the line, a ball got dropped. Is that right?
Well, it's not uncommon for school districts. One of my districts before, when I was joined there are hundreds of DSA, and I really work with a team to set aside funds to really address the issue. But there was a 200 million construction projects that I had to oversee. But for us here, it could be, as part of the process, I think we should be really be paying attention to when it's completion, when it's signed off, inspected and everything. You should make on a checklist to submit for approval, final approval, DSA, rather than just say, oh, okay, now we embark on another process, because it will hold up other, subsequent projects. But it could be at that time there was just no DSA approval required for other projects. It just didn't really go back to look at this two sign-offs for these two projects.
This is my last question. And remember how the pool heater at the stadium, with the new construction, it wasn't geared for whatever circumstances, and so it failed earlier than we thought. Is that something that the DSA would come and inspect and may have caught earlier, or is that just kind of a completely different scenario? Like,
it's different.
Do they look at? It's different. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Rivera.
Thank you. So just a clarifying question. I know that down there, if I'm correct, there's no press box, there's no snack bar, there's no bleachers right now. Does this mean that we need DSA to sign off on the the project that is written, like nothing could start until DSA signs off on? Wow.
Yes, we do need the sign off on previous two projects because we can't even submit it. They would not entertain looking and reviewing our current submittal if we do not have the closeouts of the previous two projects.
But to be
Trustee Paff, go ahead and interrupt. It's no problem. Go ahead.
frank, how did we rebuild a stadium with a DSA approval for something 2009 and or KL? I mean, all of this should have been the DSA is also supposed to supply you information back in a timely manner such that you don't fall into this. Because if we have something that today we've done 2,200 projects between now and then. So how did any of them get passed? Well, no one knows. It's magic. So
Somebody dropped a ball.
yeah, well, not just here, right?
I don't know.
I do. I mean, it's got to be at DSA. Otherwise, they'd have picked it up on the very first project you resubmitted.
Well, is for us to, when we, again, the completion, we'll have to make concerted effort on a checklist for final approval. And the thing is it's not a problem until there is a problem, meaning when we have a next project that requires DSA certification, that will stop us from proceeding. So, but if we don't, let's say we don't get approval and the next 20 years, we're gonna have projects that do not require DSA, then it's not an issue.
Did K&L require DSA?
It was a repair. At this, at that time, we didn't see it. No, it was
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Okay, public comment? Except the lady at the mic.
Beth Shamos. Well, in 2009, we had a construction manager, so I know that I remember DSA being involved, but we did have a construction manager aside from our assistant superintendent who had to do everything. Anyway, but with the baseball field, I remember Matt Kelly saying it's coming up in the projects for the Measure D. And I really hate that portable announcer stand. I mean, can we just cancel that? Because it was like $64,000 and it just seems like ridiculous. Why would we even put that down there now that you know that you're gonna have to redo the accessibility to that area? It just seems ridiculous to have some kind of a portable thing. For what? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I would encourage that, whatever architect we have, that we look at what do we need to do to make that look nice. And the access has always been bad. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair or not, that access is not good and it's never been good. So it needs an upgrade, just like the stadium, the baseball field. And, hey, we have good baseball teams. We need to support them.
Thank you for sharing. Any other public comments? Okay. Money seems to be at the root of so many issues within the district. Okay, let's move forward, please, with future agenda items. Our time is, we got about 6-7 minutes.
I'll take all of it.
Please, would you, Dr. Porras? You've been quiet for a bit. It's time for you to pop into action here.
Thank you. Actually, no, I have nothing more to add. I didn't catch anything this evening. I will say that I will go ahead and strike out the third from the bottom bullet since we have the military website item now up. So there we go. So happy to entertain any items from the board at this point in time.
Carolyn?
Yes, I don't want to interrupt. So are you ready for my?
That's why I spoke your name out. We're ready.
Excellent. Okay, so It's coming up again, I believe, for the annual evaluation of ourselves as a board. So I wanted to put that out there so we can kind of think about when we want to do that. Measure D update, Ralph, is that coming up already, or when is that scheduled for?
The Measure D update, we don't have it scheduled. I can't remember what month it's in, but it's coming up soon. I have to look on that.
Okay, I didn't see it on here, so
I
I
thought it
wasn't
was on the
sure.
calendar, but maybe it's not.
Oh, okay, yeah. Could you just check on that? And then, the next school year calendar, is that coming up through the committee so we can approve it as a board?
Yes, there have been some, there were a few hitches. So we're bringing, it went back to committees. And it should be coming back to the board, I think, this next time around, the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Yeah, the only one I was kind of wondering about is a board member, a board advocacy committee. I'm not quite sure what that means or if we need it at this time.
I can explain what that is. That came about a year ago when we did our self-evaluation, and we realized that there was a gap in our board. We all kind of felt when we answered that question that as a board, we weren't advocating at like local, county, state, perhaps even federal levels for things to speak up for our district, to advocate for our district. And so at that meeting, you guys had said that you kind of said, Carolyn, okay, if you want to bring that back and talk about it. So that's why I asked to bring it back last November, and it's just been sitting there.
Okay, I'm wondering if the legislative action day that you just attended, the conferences we attend, I feel like I'm out there with Community Human Services and also serving on the Monterey County Office of Ed School Board. And out there, so I remember that did come up, but I do feel like we're out there. You were speaking last night. Did they know you were from here? There you go.
Except the board didn't know that he was going to be there, or at least I didn't until I realized that. I do think that there's value in at least keeping this on the agenda, or we could, when we do our next evaluation, if it comes back that we all feel somehow that we've changed, because we haven't really changed anything from what we have been doing last year. You're still on Community Human Services. You were when we took that evaluation last year.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at. If you want to scratch it off, I'm okay with that. And we can see if it pops back up again on the evaluations that we do for ourselves.
What do you think, John?
Well, the open question was, what does it mean and how do we define it and at what level, right? And so at some point you're advocating at a state level, which is advocation for your district and your students. And then there's some question of what that means at things. And I think that's why it's here, but yet vague. And one of the questions was to try and get more information on how to define that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it
I would leave
necessarily
it there with that.
needs to be a committee.
Yeah. I would leave it there with the knowledge that somehow we have to redefine the question, and maybe next month sometime we try and really define what we're looking for. Okay with that. I don't need to strike it.
Yeah. You agree?
That we need to define it? Yes.
Okay, well, we can maybe look at that and talk about a little. What I just want to look at is that we don't get a massive list. So I want to keep prioritizing, but let's keep it on there for a while and we can take a look at that, okay?
One other question for you. The item that was added March 3rd regarding school reconfiguration does not have a date as to when you'd like it to come to the board. Based on today's comments, I just want to know if there's a date.
Maybe 2027, I'm thinking, fall.
So the question, Ralph, is putting it just as a board agenda item is in some manner inappropriate to me. This is a big, I mean, Carrie's not wrong. This is a big question and a big decision. We're clearly not saying we're reconfiguring next fall. But we're saying, okay, if this is one possible way to affect an outcome that we're looking for, how do we review it rationally and there? So I don't know that there's a date on that as an agenda item, but there's certainly a date that we should say, okay, we have to start looking at this and what's that process really look like? And even definition of that process.
I think that's all joking aside, that's what's critical. I mean, obviously, whatever movement we would make can't be quick. It's a very slow unfolding. So I do feel like there needs to be discussion and thought. I think there seems to be a couple of thoughts that not right now, too much is going on right now. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, it's not necessary, just give us money and then everything's equal. So I think there needs to be a discussion. Even if we push it off, I just don't want it, personally, I don't want it to die because I think the students deserve a conversation.
Is the discussion that we are jumping to reconfiguration, or is the discussion that we want to really take a deep look at how to make Forest Grove and Robert Down more equitable?
I think it's the former. I think the former solves the latter.
I mean, personally, I'm not convinced of that. I've never heard it. I think there's a lot of steps we could take to make things more equitable. I don't know. I haven't been on the board or seen a presentation that shows me that it's straight to reconfiguration.
Well, straight to, this got brought up years and years and years ago. So there's no straight to, that's for darn sure. I mean, it can't be more plotting and it's taken a long time. So I think there needs to be a conversation.
Okay. No need to put a date right now.
No, but it needs to be out there and not that it makes people tense and let's forget about it for a few years. Anything else? I think we're like, right now. So can I gavel us out?
We're returning to closed session, yes?
Yes, we're returning.
So we'll make a report out after.
We'll make a report. I'm sure everyone here, please don't leave because it'll hurt us if we come back and you're sleeping somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.